across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good morning. Welcome to the show. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is Talk with a home of common sense. 3 minutes past 10 o'clock is the time. And whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device, it's absolutely fabulous to have your company. Lots and lots to talk about today. One thing we can't talk about, of course, is the by-election going on in Manchester today. We will be able to talk about that tomorrow. Jeremy Carr will be here on breakfast from 6 to talk about the result of that by-election. And I'll be here from 10. I know, me working on a Friday. What a shock to the system, eh? Sorry about that to everybody else who's got to listen. But anyway, I hope you'll join us for that show as well. Don't forget, if you miss anything from today's show, anything you've missed this week, do go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. You can hit subscribe and you never have to miss a thing. Coming up in this hour, we're going to discuss the Met Police's investigation into Peter Mandelson. Is it already farcical? What the hell are they doing? Giving the identity of a source, the Commons Speaker, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, to Peter Mandelson about why they decided to arrest him because they think he's going to flee the country. I mean, what an outrageous thing for them to have done. Plus, that Keir Starmer's Check or Silence deal is descending into chaos. Of course it is. Are we going to see a pause on that or not? And how doubling what we spend on the NHS, up from about 100 billion 17 years ago to 200 billion plus now, has apparently had no positive impact on the nation's health. And of course, we've got this new report on maternity care, which suggests we're looking at a postcode lottery maternity care, which is failing both mums and babies. And the latest stats on the Channel arrivals: 545 migrants arrived on small boats yesterday. The busiest day for Channel crossings this year. Mind you, I did note some of the brother broadcasters were calling it the hottest day of the year, as if this was somehow a surprise. Not quite sure why it would be a surprise, what with the weather getting warmer as you start the year, just like it gets colder as you end the year. It's almost like these people don't understand seasons and weather sometimes. But there we are. What a surprise. The people who are putting people on those migrant boats across the Channel absolutely do. When they see a nice warm day with nice calm seas, they put them on those boats. We've also got some latest stats which have just come in. As of about 9:30, the Office of National Statistics give their latest formal figures on asylum and immigration. And oh, what an interesting read they are. You'll be excited to know that asylum seekers in hotels, the number of them has fallen to its lowest level in 18 months, which is brilliant news, is it not? There are currently 30,657 people being housed in hotels paid for by you and me after arriving here illegally. That's down from a peak, by the way, of over 56,000 under the previous Tory government at the end of September 2023. It is, though, still slightly higher by about 1,000 people over when Labour took office. The trouble is, those people who are no longer in asylum hotels haven't been deported, or if they have, they're on a BA plane that we've paid a fortune for to Paris to then have come back again a few weeks later and just try and claim it again. Or we've had an exchange a migrant back. Most of them are just sort of carrying on living here, but they're in a house of multiple occupancy, they're in a flat, they're in a bedsit somewhere, rather than in a hotel. So I'm not quite sure anyone should be cheering about that. But certainly asylum claims have fallen by 4%. But that does mean still, wait for this, more than 100,000 people, 100,625 to be exact, claimed asylum in the UK last year. But it's down 4%, so we're supposed to think that's a good thing. That'll mean more down to the weather than anything else. But we also did see small boat crossings surge by 13% last year. Over 41,000 small boat migrants crossed the Channel, up 13% on the previous year. And those stats, I think, are just still utterly perplexing, are they not? Anyway, love to hear your thoughts on all of that. Love to hear your thoughts on everything we're talking about, including NHS spending doubling in 17 years with apparently no actual impact on the nation's health. People are not living longer. People are not healthier. So why is that not working? And why have we got basically a postcode lottery in maternity care? Give us your thoughts on all of that, and indeed anything else, because you get to decide what you want to call in on. 0344 499 1000 is a number to call. You can text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. And of course, as you know, are charged at the national rate, and text costs £1, standard network rate message. Well, joining me for all the chat today, delighted to say it regularly on a Thursday, Philip Ingram MBE, former senior military intelligence officer. Morning.
Good morning.
Well, you don't need to be a military intelligence officer to work out what the hell's going wrong with the asylum system and immigration system, do you, on those numbers? It goes a bit up, it goes a bit down. You move people from hotels, you move them into other accommodation, and they don't count as that sort of really, that stat that makes people really angry. But at the end of the day, they keep on a coming, and the only thing that makes a difference is not government policy, it's not payments to the French, it's not kowtowing to the Chinese and asking them to stop selling bits of the outboard motors. It's basically what the weather's like.
Well, it is, and it's the fact that they're welcomed when they get in. They get through the port in 13 minutes. Within 50 minutes, they're in a centre being processed.
30 minutes processed. Yeah. I mean, I spend longer in a queue for the passport.
Yeah, exactly.
So the passport queue at Stansted.
This is where I don't think people are getting, and our politicians aren't getting, the real threat that's in here. Most of these people are economic migrants. They are fighting-aged young men coming in. 100,000 in the last year. We've only got 72,000 in the British Army.
You know what? You've made this point before, and every time you do, I think, good God, that is just such a important statistic.
And within those, Syria, the fighting has stopped in there. There shouldn't be anyone coming from there. Yeah. There isn't really fighting and oppression in lots of places across the Middle East or North Africa or anything else.
Well, such where it is. There are countries where people come from. Is it Eritrea, where they're conscripted to the army? Well, sorry.
Well, so what?
Sorry.
Yeah. Afghanistan, we can't send people back there because European human rights legislation doesn't allow us to do it. But Germany, who's subject to the same legislation, can do that.
Also, by the way, if you're going to take anyone from Afghanistan, it'd be women, not men, right?
Well, exactly. We need to be doing something to stop this. And the threat that's coming into this country, because these individuals coming in have been infiltrated with criminal gangs. Yes. There are terrorists that are amongst them and all the rest.
Of course they are. That's deliberate policy
from
ISIS and others, basically, move over to. But also crucially, we know that a lot of these men, they've tried asylum. They've been living in Belgium or Germany or Sweden.
They've failed or committed other crimes.
A huge number of them have got criminal convictions as well. And when someone says, "Oh, they're all criminals, they're all rapists," no, they're not. But far too many of them are, and I would say still one is too many.
Correct. One is far too many. And what we need to do is have a robust method of stopping them. None of this pampering around. None of this. We have to, or whenever they get on shore, they get locked up.
Completely. There's there's just no doubt at all in my mind about that. Of course, the human rights lawyers won't like it. Well, Zach Polanski, the Green Party leader, who, by the way, has not responded to my request for an interview, although I'd forgotten this. I had interviewed him back in 2019, the Green Party leader, but he wasn't the Green Party leader then. He was just an Extinction Rebellion supporter or member, and you can make him talking the usual nonsense that he does now. But now he's running a political party.
A therapy guru.
No. He's not responsible for the size of my breast, despite working as a hypnotherapist.
I wasn't going to say that at all.
They're all my own work. Do you know what I find extraordinary? Some people say, "Oh yeah, this is this is a made-up story." The Sun got a tip-off that this guy was doing this. The Sun literally went and interviewed him. There's a video of him giving this woman hypnotherapy, in which he claims he's hypnotising her into her, not just thinking, but her breasts actually growing bigger. She claims, "Oh, it did work." Who knows? But I mean, it's not a fake story. He actually did this, But anyway, no, but he's refused to come on, which hasn't responded to the request, and has written some words about me. I don't think he's very keen on me, since he said. Because I was questioning him about why he keeps going on about genocide in Gaza, because there wasn't genocide and isn't genocide in Gaza, because the evidence is very clear. He says, because people should obviously take advice from awful reactionaries, that's me, who earn money spouting hateful opinions, that's me, rather than listen to actual genocide scholars. I mean, a lot of the people saying it aren't actual genocide scholars, by the way, and the obvious evidence in front of our eyes, the obvious evidence quite categorically, even on Hamas's own figures, is the genocide in Gaza. He says the establishment is trying to lash back. Apparently, I'm the establishment. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the last Tory government and the current Labour government absolutely feel that way. We know what to do, he says, and then talks about how people should vote, which obviously I can't say on a by-election day. But I have a funny feeling he's not going to want to debate me. But we've been discussing his policies. Front page of the Mail the last couple of days, the idea that, you'd basically just say, there's no borders, anyone can come, free house.
Well, he's also saying free drugs for everyone and free, and honestly, he's mad. He's completely and utterly.
It is utterly
two stops beyond barking.
But if you think the Tories were bad on the immigration policy, and then you have the Labour Party on immigration policy, and then the prospect of the Greens. I mean, I'm just Lib Dems. I mean, you just got wow.
Thank God, there's zero chance of the Greens ever being in a position to form a government.
Well, you say that in the next election, if there were ended up being a coalition on the left and a coalition on the right, very likely they could influence. The Greens have been very influential. Okay, we haven't got PR in this country, but could be very influential as they've been in German governments. They've been hugely influential in Germany. I mean, hence why Germany's economy is completely ruined. I mean, genuinely, it's because the Green influence, but also the Green influence on, again, we see the Green influence in the Labour Party as well. And as they lurch to the left, as the Greens grow up in the polls, there's going to be more of that. I mean, that's the same effect that Reform has on Tories. Yeah. The Tories are pushed to the right.
Yeah, we'll start to see more splits in the Labour support.
Oh, it's going to be a fascinating few years ahead, folks. It really is. Let's. I'd love to. I've already got a load of calls on the board about all of this. Give us a call.
I like your green jacket, by the way.
Thank you. I like to be part of political. No. I just literally go. Oh, have I worn that one this week? Take it out of the cover. You're so lucky, but I mean, you, to be fair, you wear a whole variety. You often wear a lot of lovely, cheerful spring colours. Yeah. The men can just literally wear just the same suit every day. And no one comments.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very unfair. Exactly. Anyway, 0344 499 1000. My first world problems there. Let's talk about Peter Mandelson. He's a lot of first world problems.
He's an awful lot of first world problems.
It is extraordinary that Metropolitan Police have now had to formally apologise for revealing that the Common Speaker of all people, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, had been the one to tip the Met Police off that he had been told on a trip to the British Virgin Islands last week that Lord Mandelson had a plan to flee the country to British Virgin Islands. Now, Mandelson has denied that, and as we know, Mandelson has always told the truth about everything. Yes. So obviously we should believe him. His lawyers also said that as well. But they somehow, he passed it on in good faith. He had a meeting with the police about something else and said, look, I feel I should pass this on. By all accounts, he'd met with all the great and the good in that country, in that territory, and that he'd been told that a very wealthy sympathiser had offered him refuge in the territory. Now, again, we don't know what's happened and who it was and why BVI would be an option, given that they've got an extradition treaty with the UK, because UK territory. But it is extraordinary that the police would reveal that he was the source. I mean, do they reveal other sources, like to criminal gangland leaders? Oh, yeah, that woman at number 52 is the witness. That is... How hard is it to not reveal your source in that scenario?
This is a shocking action that needs to have some form of sanction against the individuals that have done it, because it's worse than Keystone Cop stuff. The positive that's come out of it, actually, I think, is Sir Lindsay Hoyle and him recognising that there was that and passing it across the Metropolitan Police and everything else, showing that he is doing his job as Speaker and keeping his
I think that's just an absolute duty that if you believe someone is going to flee potential justice, that you have a duty to say so.
You do, but so many people who've got duties to do things turn a blind eye. So
you make a fair point.
So you're well done, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, for doing that. But to be outed by the police telling Peter Mandelson's lawyers that the source of information was the Speaker of the House of Commons is just wrong. And then everyone gets it wrong. And the police statement was slightly wrong in some of it, because they then chased the Speaker of the House of Lords, first of all, who said, no, I had nothing to do with this.
Yeah, I think that's why Sir Lindsay Hoyle spoke up. But it is just extraordinary. Although, again, I really like Sir Lindsay Hoyle as a person. He's a really nice guy. But I think there's a lot of question marks about his expenses and where he goes. If you look at all his official trips since he's been Speaker, they're remarkably warm and nice places.
There is about lots of people who
do you need... I mean, this is British Virgin Islands has got a population of about 40,000. Is this really somewhere where it's necessary?
But the lessons you can learn from the Speaker of the House and Parliament in the British Virgin Islands.
I'm sorry.
It takes 2 to 3 weeks every year to actually bring those lessons out.
If it's a private trip, fill your boots. I love a holiday, as you know, but seriously, I ain't paying for other people's. But anyway, especially, you know, in the dead of winter, going somewhere warm. Well, what a coincidence. The rest of us have to earn money to pay for those things. Anyway, very interesting latest developments, though, in terms of the whole Jeffrey Epstein, all that affair. Yeah. Jeffrey Epstein, we've seen some documents now blaming Charles, we assume he means King Charles, as he is now, on the day that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor lost his UK trade envoy job in 2011. So, you know, in an email saying, well, does Andrew know that this would have been Charles's work? Well, that makes the then Prince Charles, now King Charles, look good, as far as I'm concerned. Also, there was no choice there. But also, this is something being pursued very much by the former Prime Minister Gordon Brown. Evidence that British past airports were used to traffic Jeffrey Epstein's women and girls as late as 2019, before his arrest and subsequent death. Also, we've got the Clintons, with Hillary Clinton testifying to a congressional committee today. Bill Clinton tomorrow, the most senior politicians, former politicians to testify. Certainly the first time that we've got a former president's going to testify. She claims she's never met Epstein, as far as she can remember. I assume aware that there'll be a photo somewhere because they've been at the same parties. Of course they have. A lot more questions for Bill Clinton to answer. We won't see the video probably until much later, probably realistically not till tomorrow, because it's not going to be shown as live. But they're basically required, they're subpoenaed. Yep. They'll have to turn up. But also this puts pressure on Donald Trump in the future when he's no longer president, that he should turn up. No,
very much so. US citizens are required, whereas non-US citizens like Andrew Mountbatten Windsor can't be forced to attend. So it'll be interesting to hear their testimony. But I do think Jeffrey Epstein blaming then Prince Charles, now King Charles, for Andrew losing his trade envoy job reflects actually the true relationship there always has been between Charles and Andrew. They didn't get on well. They never did. And Charles felt that he had to keep, because it was his immediate brother, he had to play the game and try and put the family arm around him, bits and pieces. But he disliked him and used every opportunity within the rules to turn around and highlight. As I've been saying for weeks, they'll always put the firm first and the future of the institution and his future job and his son's future job. Not going to have that ruined by Andrew. We're going to see where all that develops. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of that as well. 0344 499 1000. Let's also talk about the NHS. Been asking people to phone in actually before we got these immigration stats out. So feel free to call in on that and any other topics. But NHS spending has doubled over the last 17 years, from basically £100 billion to 200 billion pretty much in that time. And Lord Bethell, former health minister, Conservative minister under Boris Johnson, we spoke to him many, many times on this show, he says this has had no impact on the nation's health. Britain was facing a social, moral and economic disaster because billions of pounds are being wasted. Did a joint interview with the former Deputy Chief Medical Officer, Professor Sir Jonathan Van Tam. Remember him from lockdown years. He warned of a demographic time bomb because, of course, we've got people who are ageing. Now, the thing is, there's been a lot of extra cash going into the NHS, but that's OK. And that was lots of it during COVID, and then they've been trying to catch up. And it's quite clear that an awful lot of that cash is not well spent. And again, if you've got a net zero officer and 15 diversity officers, but you're short of radiographers and nurses, you're a really bad manager. You shouldn't be paid by the public person. You should be out. Simple as that to me. We're going to be spending extra money. The times when people cost money in terms of healthcare is when you're born, when you're really little and you get your jabs and your birth, very expensive. And then when you're old. We've got a lot more old people. It's not just that people are living longer. We have this massive bulge at the moment of, my parents' generation, people born in the 40s, who are just, there's this huge cohort, the baby boomers, who are all at the point where they've lived a long time and now they're needing huge amounts of healthcare. I've lost track of the amount of healthcare that my family members have been needing. By the way, ending up a lot of the time going private because you simply can't get it. And having been lifelong supporters of the NHS, and indeed in my mum's case, a GP in the NHS, never did a day's private practice, but it's not there for her when she needs it. And I feel slightly resentful about that, I'm not going to lie. But there is this thing where there's just, we've got all these older people living longer. We've got all these new different technologies and drugs and treatments. They cost more. We've had what, 10 million plus people arrive in the country from abroad.
no one thought of expanding the number of GP surgeries or hospitals to account for that. And no, they're not all working for the NHS. And if they are, that doesn't account for all the numbers. But you're just in the situation where, of course, you're going to be spending more, but it is to that extent a bottomless pit.
Yeah, of course it is. Like many government departments, and if you look at the way they're spending, and a lot of it is down to poor management and mismanagement the whole way through. But people, whenever they get the money, if they've got enough within their budget to do what they're doing, they're not going to put the effort into trying to make things more efficient. They need to be forced to do that, and we need to get that mentality across different.
Even down to procurement. I mean, the Defence Department, your expertise is one of the worst, but their procurement, there's different health authorities that are paying 2-3 times the price for their latex gloves, things like that.
Exactly, and it's the same with the police forces and all the rest of it. And to put it down to, the analogy I use is, you've got your old uncle who's an alcoholic gambler, and he's hit the low, and he needs more money so that he can pay his rent. Do you give more money to pay his rent, or do you help fix the addictions before you then give him more money? You have to fix the addictions, because you can keep pouring money in, you're not going to make it any better.
No, I mean, that's the thing, and it clearly is the case. And we've got also this report today by Baroness Amos it's an interim report looking into maternity care in the UK. And I mean, again, it's very, very, very troubling reading. And I remember certainly when I went to have my baby all those years ago. I've told the story before. Sorry if I'm boring you. But I was a political editor of a national newspaper. I was able to ask the health secretary, we've moved house halfway through my pregnancy. Should I move to that hospital or that hospital? No, stay at that hospital. Have a 45-minute drive to hospital, not a 10-minute drive to hospital in London, which is a long way in London in traffic. Because you've got a better chance of you and your baby coming out alive. Yeah. That's a postcode lottery. That is still the case. But again and again and again, we are seeing these stats on maternity care in particular, where the care is very different in different units. Yeah. In particular, you don't want to go anywhere near a unit that is midwife-led. Yeah. I don't believe in home births either. And most home births that have a problem end up in hospital as a statistic for an emergency birth. If you've had 5 kids before and you can knock them out, and you don't have cream carpets, fill your boots if you want to. Personally, I wanted to have the top surgeons in the city I live in who might be available in the next room should something go wrong, to make sure that my baby and I both came out alive and healthy. And I've interviewed as a news reporter over the years far, far, far too many parents who've lost their babies because of failings in maternity units, and it's heartbreaking. And as someone who said, I lost 4 babies to miscarriages, but very early on, I've had friends who've lost babies, at 7 months. It is the most devastating thing, and it is unforgivable that our stats are as bad as they are. It's still a small number of babies that are lost, but each one is one too many. And it's quite clear you've got units where there's just chaos, no one's communicating with each other, they're understaffed, and then particularly also you've got a lot of political sort of views from a lot of midwives that natural is best. Well, yeah, if the baby's not going to die as a result of that. And natural is best is the reason why women used to die in childbirth routinely.
Many years ago, I remember doing a little bit of work with a charity that had been put up that was providing obstetric training overseas, and they were looking at bringing it into UK hospitals, and they did a trial. And I think the training was called PROMPT, which is Practical Obstetric Multi-Professional Training, led by a couple of senior clinicians from hospitals in the southeast of England and the southwest of England, and they found that where that training was put into different hospitals, the outcomes were so much better.
Yeah. It's so simple.
And it was really simple, bringing a standard level of training across
a checklist
all of the multidisciplinary teams that you've got that are needed to deal with obstetric care. It seems as if that hasn't happened.
It's an absolute failure. But again, a lot of this is political dogma. There is this whole idea that I don't approve of women going, I think I don't want to have a tear or anything, so I'm going to have a cesarean. No, I don't think you should be able to opt for a non-medically needed cesarean. I think that's appalling.
Exactly.
But and it's a great extra cost to the NHS as well, and it's not good for your baby either.
Human beings have been giving birth for millennia.
Yeah, but women, only women, human beings. Funny
yes,
enough.
I know.
But by the way, women have also been dying. It's the biggest thing until 100 years ago. It's the biggest single cause of death for women, other than old age. I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah.
People forget, and it's a very dangerous. That's the thing. I can remember when I went to my antenatal classes. It was all about what music do you want, what this, what that. I had a sheet of A4. I just wrote epidural across it diagonally, about sort of 48 point, and I just said, I just want everyone to come out alive. It's not an experience.
Yeah.
It's a necessary thing
it's
to
one
get.
of these things that
I don't want to
you have to go
remember it.
through.
I just want my baby to come out alive, and I want to come out alive. And you want to be somewhere that is professional. They know what they're doing. They've got the medical expertise. And all these people go, "We shall be all natural." Well, that's great. Well, let's all go and give birth in paddy fields, and we'll lose about 30% of women and 30% of babies, shall we? Because that's what it used to be like.
Yeah.
And I'm just so appalled by this. So it's an interim report. Lessons will be learned. All of that nonsense. People need to start being sacked. If your unit has a higher rate of death, and also then they're going, part of this is down to racism, because the black women and Asian women are losing their lives, and their babies are dying more. And again, I've looked into the stats on this, and it's very interesting, because actually, of course, we are looking at higher rates of obesity among particularly black and Asian women. You're looking at higher rates of underlying health problems and things which are more likely to lead, sadly, to maternal or the baby's death. And you're also more likely to come from poorer areas, not such good hospitals. There are lots of other reasons that have got nothing whatsoever to skin colour. But there does seem to be a differential which can only be explained by attitudes towards care towards certain women. This is the thing I find fascinating. 1 minute we're told that everyone working in the NHS is an angel, and we are so lucky to have them, and we need to be clapping hands and banging pots to them, and they're amazing. And then we're told apparently they're a load of racists who are giving black women worse care and killing their babies. I mean, which is it?
Yeah, but
which is it?
But they're also not learning the lessons, because it was 2011 whenever I was doing this work and doing this advice. So the lessons were learned then. Well, they haven't.
Years.
15 years.
15
and
years.
the lessons are never learned in government departments.
No,
they're
never
re-identified time after time after time after time.
Another story I want to get to, but I haven't got time, but we're going to get to it later. Nadia Hussein, remember her from Bake Off? Literally the only Bake Off winner I've ever heard of. Apparently, she hasn't got a BBC contract because everyone doesn't like Muslims and we're all racist. We're going to talk about that a bit later. I bet you can't guess my views on it. Anyway, 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Get the call straight up after the next break. This is Talk. Breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is.
Mr. Mandarin, how long do you think that you can stay on the island?
We're going to stay forever. Our rights have to be respected now. We're going to stay.
Do you expect Jeremy Clarkson to become a part of your new party?
I can tell you, if Jeremy Clarkson decided to darken my doorstep, I would be absolutely delighted.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, welcome back to the show. 10:31 is the time. Let's get straight to your calls. 0344 499 1000. Ian is in London. Ian, you want to talk about the NHS, all these problems, the NHS, maternity care and the like. What do you make of it all?
Good morning, Julia. But you've rather taken the wind out of my sails.
Oh.
Because you said everything I was going to say.
But am I right in thinking you're actually a nurse?
I'm a 20-year veteran.
Of nursing, yeah.
Nursing, ex-army medic. Lost my wife at the age of 50.
Oh, gosh.
Through medical incompetence. Didn't sue. Went through the inquiry to make things better.
Yeah.
And I may have well not wasted my time.
Yeah, we heard that before. I'm so sorry for your loss. Yeah. Look, whatever I've said, I'm not an expert. I mean, I talk about these things, I read widely, I talk to experts, but somebody who's actually on the front line as a nurse, what do you think the problem is?
Ward-based midwife training, going to university. The same with nursing. Midwife-led by a bunch of identity politics, power-mad feminazis, excluding men, fathers, male doctors, identity politics.
An idea that we know better because we're women and we've done this ourselves. Yeah.
Correct. And most of them haven't even had children.
Yeah.
They're the people who've never had children. And sadly, they're not even in a relationship with a man either. That might explain something.
You're coming down hard. You're just. I doubt that's the case for all these situations.
Sorry,
but
Julia, I'm not going to throw any punches here because the situation's so serious.
Yep.
I'm really not.
Yeah. No, but it's definitely there is a political agenda that has definitely crept into this.
It's a political agenda,
as opposed to keeping everybody alive and healthy, which should be the only consideration.
Yeah, there's a resistance to caesareans. Now, I spoke to Baroness Ockenden about the report, and I've got 2 copies of it, and I've got a copy of the Embrace report. And what you said about racism is absolutely correct. It's got nothing to do with racism. And the problem is they're treating black mothers and white mothers the same. Well, they're not the same. They have different health needs.
This is true.
They have lupus. They have sickle cell.
Yeah.
The schizophrenia. There's domestic abuse. They might come into the country or be visited their home country and come back and picked up malaria.
We're talking the vast majority of women will be British citizens who are black or Asian who are having babies in this country.
They have diabetes. They have high blood pressure.
There is no doubt at all that weight is a massive factor in this. But also again darker skin, and we know there's been an issue in terms of doctors and nurses not being trained about. Sometimes they recognise issues by skin discoloration, which of course isn't as visible on darker skin.
Exactly. If you've been beaten up by your partner and you're black, it's very difficult to tell.
That's going to be a different. Okay, but I suppose whether that be that would be that would be a factor in maternity. Ian, thank you for that. Look, I can understand you're very angry and understandably so. But you've actually you've been at the sharp end. Ian, thank you for your call. Daniel is in Epsom. Hello, Daniel.
Morning, Julia. How are you, love?
Very well indeed. You want to talk about these latest immigration figures?
Well, I just don't get it anymore. It's like they're celebrating that they've got them out of hotels.
I know, it's hilarious.
And then the British majority are kind of sat there going, we don't want them here at all, though.
Yeah, the thing is, they're out of hotels. Where are they?
They're next to our schools and they're living next door and they're following my daughter home and they're raping and attacking people and they're doing all... So
I'd rather they were in the hotel. I've been saying this for a year or so. I'd rather they were in the hotels when people in the local areas would at least know where they were.
Well, where's the democracy? We've got a government that works for us, the British majority. The British majority obviously and clearly don't want illegal immigration at all, yet we're still having it every single day against our wishes.
Yeah.
So I've written to Prince William, and I wrote to him, and I put something like, Prince William, if you don't get involved in the immigration issue, your son George will be reigning over a third world toilet. And they'll get rid of the monarchy. When all the native British people like me have left for Eastern Europe, and this is just a hellhole here, there'll be no royal family. You'll have nothing to reign over. Can you get involved? Because something bigger than our politicians needs to something big needs to happen here.
Well, I mean, royals aren't allowed to get involved in politics because Charles has been far too involved in my view over the years. I don't think that. I mean, I think William gets too involved with all the climate claptrap as well. But no, I can understand your concern. But again, I know that Labour are going to be hailing this as some victory, and the British public are going to go, shrug. What are you talking about? This is not a victory. It's not good enough. Doesn't even touch the size of being good enough. Daniel, thank you for that. 10:37 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. Going to talk to the former political editor of The Sun, that's Trevor Kavanagh, about all the political stories going. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 10:38 is the time. Let's get straight to my next guest, Trevor Kavanagh. He's former political editor of The Sun. Good morning to you, Trevor.
Hi, Julia.
Well, those figures that came out since, just before we came on air on asylum and immigration, I absolutely know, without a shadow of a doubt, the government are going to be so chuffed about this. Isn't it great that we've seen a 13% drop in the number of study, work and family visas issued last year compared to 2024? Isn't that fantastic? They're going to say, isn't it great? Asylum claims have fallen by 4%. Isn't it great that we've got the asylum seekers in hotels at its lowest level in 18 months or so? Still higher than it was when Labour came to power. But they're going to point to all of this as being a great success. And the British public are going to go, are you kidding me?
I think some of your listeners have already expressed this pretty strongly and coherently so far. And I think that they're absolutely right. What on earth are we doing as a sovereign country, allowing people simply to walk in their hundreds, in their thousands, in their hundreds of thousands indeed, without permission, breaking the law and arriving as illegals right from the word go. And I think it must be a huge tribute to the Starmer-led government that they find it so attractive to come here. 545
migrants yesterday, busiest day of Channel Crossing so far this year. Basically, it was the first warm, nice day. But it doesn't seem to matter who's Prime Minister, doesn't seem to matter what colour rosette they're wearing, doesn't seem to matter what they say, what they're going to do. The main determinant of the number of migrants who arrive illegally on our shores is the weather.
Well, yes, it is. I mean, the first duty of any government, whichever flavour they may be, is to defend the country. And whichever way you look at this, and OK, the left have taken over the English language, but this is an invasion.
Yep.
And the people who are coming in have nowhere to go. They've got no money, no employment because they're illegal. So they know perfectly well that they're coming in to be housed at our expense and fed at our expense and treated with medical care at our expense, but with no future determined for themselves. This is a gamble on their part that is pure desperation in the eyes of some because of where they originally came from. But they've come through Europe in order to get here. So this is a destination, it's a magnet to immigration, and it's down to all of the governments we've had for the last 20 years.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, we've become more of a magnet to Zach Polanski's Green Party, which is riding high, doing very well in the polls. I mean, well, you know, behind Reform, obviously, and Labour, but really, you know, snapping at the heels of Labour. And the expose in the Mail yesterday of Zach Polanski's Green Party's immigration policy, basically, no borders, come on in, no one's illegal. You can work if you want from day one, use the NHS, we'll give you a house for free. Again, for free. Where these magical house is there a magical free house tree that I hadn't heard about? And if you don't want to work or even bother to look for work, we'll give you a universal basic income, which most people say would be around the 12 grand mark. I mean, genuinely, we will have millions of people marching across Europe to come and get in those boats at that point.
The alarming thing is, Julia, that the latest polls down in or up in Gorton and Denham.
Oh no! Sorry, Trevor, stop! I'm going to stop you. You're used to the newspapers. We can't. Yeah, absolutely, literally, legally cannot even discuss the actual by-election.
Forget about Gorton and Denham. The polls are showing that the Green Party is being supported by almost as many people, and in some cases more than the two major parties, especially the Tories. That is a huge indictment of our voters. I mean, honestly, voters get the politicians they deserve. And
I totally agree with you.
And if indeed the Green Party does well in any election at any time, and in fact becomes the tail that wags the dog in some sort of coalition, then we deserve the fate we are doomed to have.
Well, yeah, I mean,
basically lawless party.
I think that a lot of people would agree with that. Let's turn our attention to other sort of Westminster politics, and that is this Mandelson arrest earlier this week and the extraordinary revelation that he put out to his friends that just happened to leak it to the media, that it was because he was the police thought he was going to be a flight risk to the British Virgin Islands, and this was totally untrue because we know he's got such a good record of always telling the truth. We know that obviously that wasn't going to happen, but apparently the tip-off came from the Common Speaker's Lindsay Hoyle. Extraordinarily, we know this because the police revealed this to Mandelson. They've now had to issue an apology to Sir Lindsay Hoyle. He apparently, on a trip to the British Virgin Islands last week, met with senior people, and someone told him a wealthy supporter of Peter Mandelson, he's got plenty of those, had apparently offered him refuge in the British Virgin Islands. But I mean, this is Keystone Cops farcical stuff from the Met, only at the very beginning of this investigation. What do you make of it?
Well, I think we've got a Keystone Cops operation right across the country. I mean, when you find in one part of the country someone's been shot in the face and the throat and the police don't notice that it's not a natural death, I mean, where do you begin with the failings of our police forces? But in this particular case, you've got long-haul Lindsay Hoyle, who makes a profession outside being Speaker of travelling the world, mostly at taxpayers' expense.
But to very nice places.
To hugely nice, nothing unpleasant along the way, all 4 or 5 star hotels, private flights and so on. Anyway, he just happened to be in the British Virgin Islands for another of these very important business flights when one of his contacts over there tipped him off apparently about this rumour. And of course, it may well be, I don't know this, I'm making this up as I go along, could it have been planted by the Mandelson people in order to confuse the police even more than they are already confused, to line up the possibility of a claim that he's not going to get a fair trial and therefore the case is dismissed before it ever gets to court? Could you imagine Peter Mandelson stooping to that sort of
absolutely not
chicanery?
Of course not. But that's the thing. I mean, the plot things. But again, the whole thing is just already looking fast, as all of this has done. And again, a lot of people are saying, why have there not been investigations before now into claims? Gordon Brown suddenly now the arch investigator when it comes to both Mandelson and indeed Andrew of Mountbatten Windsor as well. We're going to see how this one goes. But of course, both men have been arrested on misconduct in public office charges, but have not been charged with any crime and have both denied any wrongdoing in relation to Epstein. Let me bring you on to one other topic, though, Chagos Islands, because we keep thinking this deal is on, it's off, it's on, it's off. We've had Donald Trump 1 week saying it's a terrible idea, 1 week saying it's the best deal that Keir Starmer can get. Most recent comments that it's a terrible idea, it shouldn't happen. We were told yesterday by a government minister that the Chagos deal was, quote, on pause, and then we were told that was a slip of the tongue and it wasn't true. Do you think we are ever going to have that Chagos deal? Are we actually going to hand over British sovereign territory to Mauritius for no legal, moral or defence or strategic or diplomatic or economic reason whatsoever, and then pay them for the privilege of renting back the Diego Garcia military base?
I suspect we won't, but who knows with this government as it flounders along, not knowing where it's going from one day to the next, constantly being buffeted by outside events, not least by Donald Trump, who has twisted and turned on this almost as much as the British government has in its turn. I mean, this is a very murky. The more you learn about the Chagos Islands and the deals with Mauritius, and now the challenge from the Maldives for the same territory, the murkier it becomes, because this is a very important strategic base for the American Armed Forces in Diego Garcia, and they don't want that threatened in any way by a possible deal with pro-China Mauritius. At least that's what it appears to be on the surface. And yet, if you look deeper into this, it's a deal which the American government itself, and for a while, Donald Trump himself, was supporting.
Yeah.
So, I mean, where do we go with this? There's a very tangled problem of our colonial heritage. We're terrified of being actually overruled publicly by the United Nations. And so we're desperately scrambling around to find a deal. And Trump is actually making it very, very difficult.
Yeah, well, I mean, we shouldn't have any deal whatsoever. There are territory, end of, nothing to discuss. But that would be too sensible for a bunch of human rights lawyers in government, wouldn't it? Trevor Kavanagh, former political editor of The Sun, thank you very much for joining us. Philip Ingram, I know I think you were on air with me when this Chagos Islands story first came. He didn't have to Google where the Chagos Islands were, unlike me, in the break when that story first broke. Was it over a year ago? Mm-hmm. Again, just this deal. Do you think that deal's ever going to go ahead?
I hope not. But as Trevor said, you never know with this government. And we have to remember, Donald Trump flip-flopping. The advice that he was getting from the United Kingdom was coming through our ambassador to the United States, who at the time was Peter Mandelson, who, if you look at all of the threads of the reports that are coming out at the minute, the links or the murkiness that there is in the deals that are going on between Lord Hermer and Peter Mandelson and various other legal advisors into different parties.
And also the huge amount of money he made from work in China.
Correct.
Who benefits because they are hand in glove with Mauritius.
And on the 22nd of May, John Healey stood up in Parliament and turned around and said effectively that if this isn't done quickly, then the Chinese threat to the sovereign territory or to the territory around there is going to be huge, and we will have international.
Chinese are not going to be threatening an American airbase,
and we will have international legal implications that we won't be able to get our way out of it. But actually, if you read the United Nations legal rulings on it, it says that we're exempt. So it's sovereign territory, and we're just making it worse. It's so murky and so complex.
I would now like an investigation into anything that Peter Mandelson had ever at any point advised on at any point in his career. I think that would be a reasonable start, but there we are. 10:49 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to be talking about the latest immigration stats and indeed the NHS problems as well with former Office for National Statistics statistician Jamie Jenkins. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 10:51 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Philip Ingram's still with me and delighted to be joined right now by former Office for National Statistics statistician. You try saying that without your teeth out. Jamie Jenkins. Very, very good morning to you, Jamie.
Good morning. You always do well pronouncing that one, Julie.
Lovely to talk to you. Let's talk about some stats, shall we? Lots of stats on the NHS, but also lots of stats on immigration today. Let's start with immigration. There's new figures out from the ONS. You used to do, crunch the stats for that official body. Look, a lot of these figures look really good. 13% drop in the number of work, study and family visas last year compared to 2024. Although, I mean, we're still looking at 757,000, 750,000 of those being granted. Asylum claims down by 4%, but we're still looking at more than 100,000 people doing it. Asylum seekers in hotels falling to its lowest level in 18 months. 30,000 people being housed in asylum hotels at the end of last year. That's down from about 38,000 the previous year, but it's still about 1,000 higher than it was when Labour came to office. Small boat crossings, though, did surge by 13% last year. But most of those stats, I can see government ministers are going to be saying, you know what, haven't we done a good job? We've done all that. But the reality is, as we know, with yesterday, 545 Channel migrants arriving on boats when the weather was nice. The weather has more to do with these policies than any official statements. What do these stats tell us?
Yeah, so if we start with the small boats that we've seen, obviously, so this is the most up-to-date figures that we've got, and what we're seeing for 2026, Julia. So remember when Starmer came in, the first full year under Keir Starmer, we saw an increase in the number of small boats coming over. And 2026 year to date is actually up again on what we saw last year as well. So we are seeing these increases in small boats. On the asylum figures that have come out this morning, so yeah, we've seen 100,000 asylum claims. Pakistan still tops the list. I'm always surprised when that comes in because obviously Pakistan is normally what you would class as a safe country. The latest data for the final quarter of 2025 that we've had as well, Pakistan tops the list as well there.
And that's for asylum seekers or legal visas?
No, so it's basically people who've come over legally through kind of visas and then they've gone into the asylum system. So
I've come over here, I've worked here I've studied here, and then it turns out I can't go home because I'll face persecution of some sort.
Yeah, and that's the most common country and continues to be the most common country. And interestingly, we always talk about the number of men coming over on small boats. The number of men who come over legally then go on to claim asylum. It's about 72% of those are men as well. So they dominate those figures, interestingly. Yeah. So
very interesting.
Why are there always more men who need to claim asylum than women? That's always an interesting
I would think particularly from Afghanistan, because I'd have thought we'll leave all the men and we'll take the women because they're the ones who are actually in need. But this is it, these stats. This is the problem we've learned with the legal migration, because people didn't really pay much attention to it was men in the back of lorries, wasn't it? And then it was people coming through the Channel Tunnel, and then it was the small boats, and that's been a lot of focus. And then we have all those stats about the Boris wave of legal migrants, not from the EU after Brexit. We could have given them visas, but we chose not to. Apparently, we chose to just basically welcome in, let's face it, most of the third world to our country, and largest number of those people not actually on work visas. They were dependents. They were not going to be net contributors. And even those who have come, the vast majority of those who've come on legal visas are not net contributors, even if they're working, aren't they?
No, and on the visas that people are coming over, we're still seeing, about 400,000 student visas have been allocated. Yeah. The dependence of students have gone down dramatically. That was started under Rishi Sunak, so can't really thank the current government for that. But it's still about double, and then China's driving that. So 10 or 20 years ago, we didn't see many Chinese students. That's driving it. The one thing the government will champion, and Julia, is the fact that the number of decisions that were made on asylum has gone up. So they are starting to try and clear this backlog. So that's a positive.
Yeah. But it was down to about one a week per Home Office official, wasn't it, at one point?
Oh, it was ridiculous in terms of the number. And then you look at, okay, so how many claims do actually get granted? So obviously 100,000 claims that we've had, about 42% initially get granted asylum. So 58% get rejected. But then what you then need to look at is the longer term, we normally see then around 17 to 20% actually go to appeals and get granted asylum afterwards. So it's a significant number. But I think the main thing to talk about as well, Julia, is that, you know, in the year 2025, we've got, and the latest quarter as well, we've got 107,000 still on asylum support. So you've called out a slight reduction in the number of people in hotels, but that just means that they've been put into dispersal accommodation, those HMOs.
They're still here. They're still here, and we're still paying for them because, you know, they're on housing benefit at the very least. It's extraordinary, isn't it? And again, a lot of these people, they get granted the right to stay. Often it's just leave to remain, isn't it? So it's not that they're proven that they are in need of asylum. It's just that we're never going to be able to deport you, so we may as well just let you stay here. Not sure that's going to fly with the British public much longer. Meanwhile, of course, let's talk about the NHS stats. Now we've depressed ourselves enough. Lord Bethell, former Conservative Health Minister, saying, look, you know, we've basically doubled. In 17 years, we have doubled what is spent on the NHS from roughly 100 billion a year to 200 billion a year. Look, you were instrumental in fighting a lot of the lockdown madness with the stats, with your expertise, having been an ONS official over these years. We're spending a lot more money, but we don't live any longer. We've still got many issues. Other than the fact that we are an ageing population and we're a bigger population, which would explain a lot of that extra spending. What's going wrong?
Yeah, I think the NHS is basically just in firefighting mode, and it continually be in firefighting mode. So you will see an increase in spending. Obviously, people's wages go up. You're right to call the ticking time bomb of an ageing population. And we've discussed last year, Julia, I think there's not enough discussed about what's actually going to happen in the next 15 years, because we're going to see a 37% increase in the number of people over 75 in this country. Yeah. The spades need going in the ground now to fix that and get to health.
And that's when the health needs just go sky high, isn't it?
Yeah, the NHS struggles now. It's going to be even worse when we get to the age where we need to use the NHS. So that's and basically there needs to be a greater focus, Julia, on getting those efficiencies. I've got a family member who's in hospital, and whenever I go there, a doctor will come along or a consultant will read the notes, spend time reading the notes, and then they might see somebody else. Why everything is written down, I don't know, in some parts of the NHS. You would think digitalise it all, use AI so we can do a quick kind of overview of what this patient's needs
Continuity of care.
Yeah, continuity of care. Speed things up in the NHS, and then we can get more people seen with the current resources. It's not always a case of chuck more money in. It's looking at the work practices, getting more efficient, because we're not going to have the money to fund for this extra 37% increase.
Well, especially not with the demographics we've got now, isn't it? People are living longer, but younger people are not having babies. We're not going to have a population in the working age to actually support these people. Again, I think people coming up younger than me, they're going to be lucky to even get a pension, let alone any healthcare at this rate. Jamie Jenkins, thank you for that really cheery chat on a Thursday morning. Happy Thursday with Jamie Jenkins there. But I mean, Philip Ingram, that's the reality, isn't it?
It is the reality. But very quickly, looking at that, if 58% of asylum applications are rejected, then 58,000 people should be sent out last year. They haven't been.
Well, also, then they wouldn't be a burden on our healthcare as well. It is a small point that if you add another 10 million people, both legally and illegally, to the country's population, you might need to spend more on healthcare. I know. Isn't that a mind-blowing idea? Who would have guessed that? So much more to talk about. Let's get to your calls as well. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. This is Talk with the Home of Common Sense, coming up to 3 minutes past 11 o'clock. Thank you very much for joining us, whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device. Very much appreciate it. If you missed anything from the show, you can go to my YouTube page, Julia Hartley-Brewer Show, hit subscribe. You never have to miss a thing, and I can stop yapping on and telling you to do that. Latest big stats on immigration we're going to be talking about up next, plus the Met Police's, I'd say, already farcical investigation into Peter Mandelson, leaking the source of a story about him, possibly, he denies it, fleeing to the British Virgin Islands from the Common Speaker, Sir Lindsay Hoyle having to apologise to him publicly. What on earth is going on? Plus that Chagos Islands deal, is it going to happen or not? And why energy bills are not falling by quite as much as Rachel Reeves had promised. And by the way, we were told they were going to be down by 300 quid, weren't we? Mine aren't. I don't know about yours. Plenty more besides. Do get in touch. Give us a call on any of the big topics we're talking about, including NHS spending, as we've just been discussing with Jamie Jenkins, who's a former statistician with the Office for National Statistics, particularly dealing with health. That spending has doubled in 17 years, from 100 billion to 200 billion, with no impact on the nation's health, according to a former Conservative Health Minister, Lord Bethell. There's also a new report claiming that maternity care is a postcode lottery. You're literally seeing mums and babies dying or being brain damaged irrevocably, because, frankly, just our maternity care is not good enough. Well, we're a first world country. It should be good enough. Give us a call on all of that. 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk in your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate and text cost one standard network rate message. I'm delighted to say still with me today is Philip Ingram, MBE, former senior military intelligence officer. Morning.
Morning again.
Well, that was a chirpy chat with Jamie Jenkins, wasn't it?
Was, yes.
About the stats in the NHS and the stats in immigration. Let's go back to these immigration stats, because they came in an hour and a half ago from the Office for National Statistics. I really wish they had a different name. It's like,
ONS.
Get my teeth out. Get my
ONS.
teeth out. So, they're dealing with illegal immigration, asylum cases, legal immigration, you name it. And some of it's good news, some of it's bad news. So the good news, fewer legal visas. So fewer visas were issued last year than the previous year. 13% drop. That's the number of visas that were for studying, work or family, so dependents. So those people who are definitely not contributing a thing at this moment in time. 757,000 granted last year, compared to 874,000 the year before. But I like to point out, by the way, even though they have literally a digital record of every single visa being issued, they always go back to correct these things. And I think they've pretty much always corrected these things upwards rather than downwards within a year, I think. But basically, 750,000 people are legally given the right to come to this country. You might think, brilliant, they're working. The vast majority of the people who get visas to come to this country are dependents of people who are working, and some of students. So they ain't working. It's for the wives and the kids. They're not net contributors. They do, however, need to use the NHS or use schools or get on buses or need somewhere to live. So there's a cost to us for that. The vast majority of people who come to work are not net contributors, because you need to be earning roughly over 45k a year to be contributing. Most of them are actually on average, below average incomes. And like most Brits actually on those incomes, they are not earning enough to cover the contribution that they get from the state back to them in terms of provision of healthcare and schools and street lights, roads, you name it. So, we ain't doing well out of this, but apparently they're coming here often to do the jobs that we don't want to do. Well, we've also got, quite a few million people sitting there in working age who are not working. Maybe they should have no option about doing a job. So we've got that stat. Asylum claims falling by 4%, but more than 100,000 people claiming asylum in the UK last year, but it's down by 4%, so that's good. I mean, but what difference does that make? 4%. I mean, we want it down by 500%, don't we? Asylum seekers in hotels has fallen to its lowest level in 18 months, although it's still higher than when Labour came in power. It's 29,500 people in hotel housing when they came into power in July 24. It's now 30,657, but that is down from the peak, we've had, which was back in 2023 under the Tories, of 56,000. How has that gone down? Have those people all been sent home from whence they came? No. They are now currently all in bedsits and flats and rooms in other people's flats, and we're paying for their rent and their accommodation. We're paying their lecky bills, their council tax, and you name it, because they haven't got jobs. So those are your stats, and we're supposed to be really, really happy about it. Oh yeah, by the way, small boat crossings have surged by 13% last year than they were the year before. Philip, I mean, I know that the government ministers are going to say we're going in the right direction, but with 545 migrants coming across on channel boats, 10 different boats, 54 on each boat. These are huge dinghies, massively overcrowded. Just yesterday, because we had a nice day of lovely sunshine, calm seas, so they, whoosh, let's go. They ran down from the sand dunes near Calais, and they got on those boats. I mean, we're not in control of our illegal rivals. We're not in control of what happens when they're here. We're not deporting them. We're still paying for them. There's a massive backlog. The government is going to claim that things are going in the right direction. Yeah, well, every time the weather's really bad and the boats can't come across, the tweets coming out of Labour Central that are reposted around by every MP and minister and all the rest of turn around and say, look, our policy's working. Yeah. No one has crossed the channel today. Yeah. I didn't see any tweets yesterday saying 545 have come across, and therefore Labour policy is getting it wrong. The whole thing is a complete and utter joke. What was described was that 58% did not get granted their asylum application. They did not get granted a visa. That means of the 100,000 that have come in last year, 58,000 should have been put in aircraft immediately and chucked out. Well, no, when we look at those who they go through, it's not people who arrived last year. They're often people who've been around for quite a few years. And they come from countries like Pakistan and China, which is ridiculous. Which is perfect, exactly. So 43% do get granted the right to stay, 58% don't, but then about 20% of them go on and then do get it. Yeah. But again, the crucial point here is that, and we've spoken to numerous immigration experts on this, is that they're not mostly being given granted asylum. Yeah. They're being granted the leave to stay. And the reason they're being granted leave to stay is because there's no hope of being able to get rid of them. Yeah. So they just give up. And then they think, well, we've got them off our Home Office books. No, but they're still on the books of the taxpayer, because we're still paying for them, and we're still going to deal with the aftermath of, let's face it, a failure to integrate, and also higher criminality, particularly from some of those groups, which are the main arrivals. I've got an answer to all of this. Have you? Yes, I have. Is it really, really obvious? It's something that if any government had the will, they would do? Yes, it's really, really simple indeed. Tell us. Anyone that you give a leave to stay, you give a visa and any description, all the rest of it, for 25 years, they have to pass a net contribution score to society. And that net contribution score includes financial contribution, it includes societal contribution, it includes social contribution, so that people who come and integrate, who are working, who are contributing tax and all the rest of it, or who are doing good things to make sure society is properly integrated, can stay because they're contributing. I disagree with you. I don't want them here in the first place. I don't want them to be able to arrive on our shores. I think the moment they arrive, they should be locked up, all told you can go at any point. I'm done. I'm done. I'm just done. And I think the British population, we're done. That's it. No more. Nada. Sorry. Not my problem anymore. I don't care. Pulling up the drawbridge. If you speak the language, you've got a load of money, you're going to set up a business employing people here, and you're going to make a cultural contribution or whatever, fine. Come on in. We'll offer visas to you. Yeah. Otherwise... Oh yeah, and you're an engineer. We particularly need that job. But by the way, we should be training enough engineers for it. If you've got brilliant ideas, if you've got brilliant qualifications, then fine. Otherwise, I'm not interested. Yeah, I don't want you here. See, those people would net contribution score, get a big tick and be like, yeah, but that wouldn't be the people who come in illegally. No, definitely. Funnily enough, they're not all astrophysicists and engineers. No, apparently. I know, I'm as shocked as you are. I'm shocked. No, they're the brain surgeons then. They're all brain surgeons. That's what it is. If only we could get them all to work on doing the brain surgery. At 20 years old. Oh no, they're not 20. They're only 16 because they're. It's just. I mean, it's just laughable. I'm genuinely, sometimes I'm just fed up of talking about this, but we've got to talk about it because it is still such a big issue. And then we've got this issue, the same stats we were talking about in terms of healthcare, where you've got, 100 billion 17 years ago was spent. Now, even allowing, inflation and 200 billion, doubling of healthcare. We haven't had a doubling of our population. It's gone up by about 10 million, and most of that's due to immigration. Actually, most of that, interestingly, is younger people who should not be costing the NHS very much money. But by the way, breaking news, people get older. I know, and then they will need more healthcare, but they also have a lot of children. People having children costs a lot to the NHS. But you're in this situation. We've got an ageing population, let's face it, a fatter population, apart from all the people who are now on the fat jabs, who God knows how many extra health problems they'll have as a result of the fat jabs. I strongly predict that. We've got to spend, we've got a load of extra different treatments, drugs and things, all of which cost a fortune. And of course healthcare is going to go up in price with an ageing population and all the medical developments. But how do we square that circle? Because at some point we are going to just be an NHS with a country attached rather than the other way around. It's already the biggest employer in the Western world.
Yeah, we have to redesign the way healthcare is provided. The NHS is not about buildings, jobs and everything else. It's about care being provided at the point of need, free at that point of need.
People getting healthy and living longer.
Correct.
It should be, that's the only stuff that should be.
And therefore this taxpayers model that's there focuses on buildings and it focuses on jobs. It doesn't focus on care. And the politicians jump up and down about that all the time.
And it is just extraordinary when people say, oh, NHS. I've had a friend of mine actually, and a family member in hospital, saying how I'm so grateful we got the NHS. I went, why? Why are you grateful you've got the NHS? It's not free. We've all paid for it. Yeah. I don't ever feel grateful. I've had health treatment over the last few years. I don't feel any more grateful for that than I feel grateful, as I say, for street lighting or traffic lights working or the police turning up. Not that the police turn up. I was joking. But I've paid for those services. I've contributed more than enough tax, which I am happy to pay. But I don't feel grateful when I pay for something. I don't feel grateful that someone lets me buy a pint of milk in Waitrose either. Would you like to sell me some milk? Would I like to buy some? Here's some money. I mean, you say thank you because you're just a polite human being, but you're not grateful that someone's giving you a service you paid for. Yeah. It's madness.
Yeah. Healthcare works across the Baltic states. Healthcare works in the Netherlands. Healthcare works in France.
Most Romanians in this country go back to Romania to get healthcare. You know why? You live longer if you get cancer treatment in Romania than you do in this country. That's an embarrassment.
It exists in Canada. They don't have the same NHS model that we have, where everything is government controlled.
Why not? We had this as the first model in the world that made sure that no matter how poor you were, you got healthcare. And yet,
but those
other
than
do the
Cuba,
no other country in the world followed this model. Yeah. What does that tell you? And most of them have better health outcomes than us. And everyone keeps wishing on, don't want to be like America. No, America's healthcare is insane. They spend 3 or 4 times as much as us. And unless you are rich, they get worse health outcomes. But there are numerous countries in Europe and other countries in the Western world that do not follow the NHS system, where no one, because they are poor, does not get treatment.
Correct.
Where the outcomes for everybody across the board are better.
Yeah. And that's an insurance-based system. And I think we need to get to a point where, and I don't think any political party will do this, but we need to get to a point where we actually review and look at the design of the NHS and change it.
Well, anyone starts talking about that, and then like Nigel Farage does that, and then the Labour Party will go, oh, you want to close down the NHS. Yeah. The thing is, I don't think that, and they haven't said that, this we need to look at it, but I don't think that's quite the sort of the burn that they think it is. It's like, actually most people, anyone who's had experience of the NHS, and I've had good and bad. I had some tests which have just been incredibly effective. I turn up, you have your test, get the results very quickly, all very good. I can get an appointment with the GP most of the time when I need one. I'm quite sharp-elbowed. But then I see other situations where it's something like, say, a hip operation or a knee operation desperately needed by an elderly relative, and, you can go on the waiting list in 9 months. You don't even go on the waiting list for this nurse 9 months, for goodness sake.
Again, the language around everyone says, we don't want our NHS to be privatised. Well, most of our primary care is privatised. It's GPs, dentists, pharmacies, and everything else. If you look at then in secondary care and hospitals, most of the services are put out to private companies.
Cleaning.
A lot of the test analysis and all the rest of it is put out to private companies and everything else. And therefore, the majority of our NHS is provided by private companies.
It's just not. But also, it's when people say our NHS. It's like, you don't talk about our fire brigade, our police. You're still paying. And again, this is
I do, because I'm paying for them.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, yeah, but
my NHS.
But it is interesting. This maternity report was an interim report by Baroness Amos looking at maternity units after a huge number of failings, and in particular failings where we got midwife-led units. And this has been an ongoing scandal for many, many years. Where, and again, I've said to every woman I know who's pregnant, do not go to a midwife-led unit. Go somewhere where you've got the top doctors. You go to a training hospital where you've got people who really, really know what they're doing, in case things go wrong. And you might want this wonderful little perfect candle and whatever birthing pool experience. That's not what it's about. It's about everyone coming out alive. And this interim report is basically talking about, doctors and nurses and midwives not talking to each other, absolute chaos in wards, a lack of communication, delays in taking action. There's always this issue. We've got a lot of midwife-led units where they're very much opposed to intervention, like using C-sections, and actually we're seeing babies are dying as a result of that. It's very clear-cut that those death rates. But they're also claiming that, it's down to racism as well, and that black and Asian women are being treated differently. So we've got these angels in our NHS who apparently want to do nothing but public service. They're wonderful people. Apparently no one's paying these doctors and nurses. They're doing it out of the goodness of their hearts. And apparently they're all wonderful. We should clap our hands and bang pots and pans for them, because they're heroes. And then apparently at the same time, they're horrible, nasty racists who are allowing black mums and babies to die rather than white ones because they've got this, unconscious bias. I mean, which is it?
I think one of the big problems that came out, and I think it was Trevor Kavanagh that mentioned it, is the fact that if you look at the way our nurses are trained, the way our midwives are trained, and all the rest of it, they go to university.
No, it was a caller actually.
One of the callers said they go to university. They will learn things theoretically in a university environment where all this woke stuff is pumped at them continuously, and then they don't get the practical experience and the hands-on experience. My mum was a nurse, and she learned on the wards. And it was highly disciplined and
I don't have a problem with nurses going to university. It's just a question of whether, and they've often taken over a lot of work of junior doctors now, and by the way, a lot of the time,
but they've always done,
they've always done. They've got to
that.
have the training. They've got to have the training.
They've always done that, and it's that balance between in classroom training and on ward training, and the balance is wrong. You can get by keeping people on the wards the same sort of qualification and everything else that'll come out of it. It doesn't have to be fully classroom based.
But it's about outcomes. I was greeted with gloriously stony silence in a question time I did a while back when I was still allowed to do it. Before apparently I was blackballed for being a climate denier. Apparently, there's climate out there right now. Not denying it, but it was a very, very woke crowd. I mean, properly woke crowd, and
no, it's balanced. It's always
very enjoyable. Always genuinely fun to do. Their faces every time I opened my mouth was just a joy. And there was this moment I was thinking about the NHS. It was one of the questions I said. Think about the NHS on the stats. Is the NHS is a fantastic organisation. The only thing it's not good at is keeping people alive. And there's this silent sort of tumbleweed going across the room. And I don't know, the stats are very, very clear. We have the worst stats for the amount of money. People say, we spend less than the other countries. No, not by that amount. The stats are very clear. We have really bad stats for outcomes for heart disease, diabetes and cancer treatment. In terms of keeping people alive, we're really rubbish at it. And people don't want to believe it. They are literally fingers in the ears going, la, 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 we've got the best health system in this health system in the world, which everyone in the world has chosen not to follow at all, even though it's the best in the world. And you just think, just the refusal of people to look at evidence. If the evidence is clear that, I used to believe that belief, for the money we spend, NHS is, best in the world. No, it just isn't. It just isn't. And I don't, on every single issue, I don't start from a party political basis. I don't start from an ideological basis. I wasn't brought up like, a Thatcherite. My family were Labour, but, I've travelled a long way over the years. I always had my own. At 17, I had a different political poster in the window than my parents did. I've always been an independent thinker on that front. I just want to know what the stats are. I want to know what the facts are. I want to see evidence for what I think. And when I see evidence that contradicts my view, I change my view. Mind-blowing idea, but the British public, I think, are rapidly coming around to the idea that there is something going horribly wrong in our NHS, and we need to take it off the pedestal and do something about it.
Yeah, there's a fantastic old saying, if you never change your mind, why have one?
Very, very good point. There's so many other things to talk about. I think we ought to talk about a really, really important issue, though. Basically, Muslim hatred and racism at the BBC. Because this is, I kid you not, this is the claim of Great British Bake Off winner Nadia Hussain. Now, I wasn't watching Bake Off at the time. I wasn't a big fan of the Melon Sue pun stuff, didn't we? Love it on Channel 4, absolutely love it, okay. But I can honestly tell you, having watched it probably for, probably about 5 or 6 years, I couldn't tell you the name of any of the winners of Bake Off ever. Okay, I just have no idea. The only one whose name I know is Nadia Hussein. Why? Because she had this massive big career afterwards. She was interviewed on every station. She was the front page of newspapers, of magazines. Her books were bestsellers. She had TV series. She was always around. I think we were all quite aware that she was Muslim. She wore a headscarf. She was very clear and open about her heritage, that she's perfectly entitled and right to do. You know, she's just a Muslim, ordinary Muslim mum, and you know, and hadn't she done well? And she was being held up by the BBC and by everyone else in the woke medias. What a wonderful representation of multicultural Britain, blah, 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 blah. And frankly, it's a technical term here, they were creaming themselves that they had a woman of colour and a Muslim winning a Bake Off at such a high-profile show. They were loving every second of it. She has since lost, she found earlier this year, she'd lost her BBC, various different BBC contracts. She wasn't on staff, you just get different contracts. And that she thinks it's down to the fact that her latest book was about cooking, you know, largely Muslim-style food. And that was it. And she's basically said she believes that it's because she is a Muslim and that the BBC is racist. Now, you've had a 10-year career with people who have celebrated every aspect of your heritage. I mean, you've been very open about it. And now we're told that that is the thing that lost your job. Now, a lot of people are now saying, you know, you had 10 years, love, for winning a cookery show, done pretty well out of it. No one else has done as well out of it as you have done. The same people who were hiring you for 10 years didn't suddenly change their views on these things. I've got to be honest with you, I think it's such an absolute outrage that she should claim this. I mean, literally just sort of slapping the hand that has been feeding you for the last 10 years. But this is genuinely disgusting. I don't believe for a moment she thinks this, by the way. I think it's so utterly disgusting for somebody to claim that the reason why, when no one's really interested in you anymore because you won 10 years ago and you're not actually that interesting a character, and we've all moved on with our lives and there are other new people who are in the frame people want to talk about, to claim that that's racism and anti-Muslim prejudice that is the reason why you've lost work. I'm sorry, I think that is a disgusting claim to make. And I think there needs to be a big backlash to that. I really do. I think people should be punished for making false claims like that.
She's still making a lot of money on the books that she's publishing. On the back of her fame from Bake Off and the programmes. And I did enjoy watching her programmes, but it had got to the point where, you know, it was the same old recipes, the same old recipe for the programme and everything else. And I thought she represented, you know, Muslim women absolutely fantastically.
I don't think she doesn't. I don't think she represents Muslim women. I don't represent, you know, atheist women in their 50s. She doesn't represent anyone. She's just herself. And you know what? We're Britain. No one cared.
Yes.
Well, the BBC cared.
Of course they did.
No one cared whether she had brown skin or white skin. No one cared whether she was gay or straight. No one cared whether she was Muslim or Christian or atheist or Buddhist. No one cared.
They were good.
Did you make a nice cake, love? Were you quite fun when you did it? That's all people care about.
They were good programmes, but they ran their course. 10 years worth of the same recipes. And the programme, the same recipes. So they couldn't find a new way of inventing it.
She's not got that big a character. But if you think about, you know, the Jamie Olivers, the Gordon Ramsays and others, the people who have to reinvent themselves for every series.
All the time.
I mean, and again, that is hard work. Just Nigella Lawson's. These people, they run top restaurants. They are at the top of their game, and it's not because they're white. And we're all racist. It's because they are absolutely top-notch, incredibly hard-working, very brilliant people who have got that X-Factor star thing that most of us don't have. And Nadia, I hate to tell you, love, you don't have it. Get the hell over yourself. I'm so ridiculously outraged by this, because every time someone does well, no one's asked, no, don't mention, you know, because they just happen to have a particular tick box that they fit. I've got no issue with any aspect of her personal life or her heritage at all. I just don't care. Are you interesting, clever, funny? Do you have something to offer in terms of being an interesting TV programme? Personally, I didn't find her very interesting, so I didn't watch her shows. But that's up to me. If other people did, fine. And if people were still watching her shows, she'd have another contract.
Yes.
It's that simple.
It is that simple. And it's, you know, 10 years is a good run.
I mean, seriously, in this business, good
very,
Lord.
Very good run.
Good Lord. You should be saying, thank you very much.
It set her up for the future doing other things. Her book writing and all the rest of it. She's still making a fortune out of that.
But it's just so outrageous that card, I've done really well out of this, and now I shall play my victim of prejudice card.
But we see that too much. We see that,
well, women do it.
I was about to say.
Selena Scott.
Yeah, correct.
Selena Scott only got work. She was a very attractive young woman because she was not a talented journalist at the time. And I'm sorry, love, you weren't. And then she complains because she's not on air when she's 70. Oh, get over
because
yourself.
She's female. Oh, so it's only because she's female.
I really, this whingy moany, you know what, sometimes you lose. I've had jobs where I've done really well in it and it's like, they're sorry, but we've decided to go with something else. Fine, okay, walk away, smile, shake hands and go walk away with your head held high and don't make an idiot of yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
This will happen. This will happen to me one day here soon. Who knows? So if I lose my job here, will that be sexism?
Well,
do you know what I mean? Like, it's because I'm a woman.
But I bet you, if you did, there would be a massive discussion in the HR going, right, how do we, is she going to make a sexist claim against us for doing this and all the rest of it? Because that is what's driving society, and this is the trouble. It's this woke discussion across society means that when you get things like this happening, then people come up with these sorts of excuses.
But again, when people make these claims, there is never any punishment sounds the wrong word. There's no penalty for it.
No, there's
no penalty, and there needs to be a penalty for it because it's a false claim and it's a lie and it's actually horribly, horribly, horribly nasty about the people who made those decisions. So they're walking around going, oh, what is it? Because I did give contracts to this woman all these years, and now it turns out I'm a racist Islamophobe. I mean, or whatever word we're using that week, Anyway, Nadia, sorry, love. Bye. I'm done. I'm done with you. I'm never. On principle, I'm not going to watch a single programme you ever do again. On principle, because of that. Not that I did in the first place. 11:28 extra time. Love to hear your thoughts on all the stories we're talking about. I realise the Bake Off story is not actually the biggest story. I'm not under any illusion. We've been talking about immigration, talking about the NHS, the comedy Met Police investigation into Mandelson and the apology to the Common Speaker, you name it. I want to hear your thoughts on all of it. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Your call's up next. This is Talk. Breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is.
Mr. Mandarin, how long do you think that you can stay on the island?
We're going to stay forever. Our rights have to be respected now. We're going to stay.
Do you expect Jeremy Clarkson to become a part of your new party?
I can tell you, if Jeremy Clarkson decided to darken my doorstep, I would be absolutely delighted.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back. This is Talk. 11:31 is the time. Let's get to your calls. Peter's in Liverpool. Peter, you want to talk about the NHS and how much we are spending on it. What do you want to say?
Yeah, I want to say you were talking about the older generation. That generation contributed. This generation today, I'd like to see the stats on how many young people today how much is that costing for them to be off work? Or
exactly. More people would have been working. Well, there were long periods in the 70s. A lot of people who are getting old now might have been out of work.
Yeah, I was forced out of work in the 70s, especially when Maggie Thatcher came in at the late 70s. I was one of the Arvidas Pet that had to go to Germany.
Yeah.
But today you don't have to prove that you're looking for work.
No, it's absolutely ridiculous. Look, at the end of the day, though, I'm not blaming anybody for getting old. I don't know why everyone always talks about it. Isn't it terrible we've got an ageing population? I think it's a really good thing that people are living longer. I'm certainly planning to go through a good old whack, thank you very much. But nevertheless, after a certain age, it's particularly 75, and I've seen that even in my own family, and it's pretty statistically proven, we start costing healthcare an awful lot more than we do than, say, in your 30s, 40s or 50s.
I'm in my 70s.
Yeah.
And it took me all my life to realise that there's not a government that I've ever been living under that has benefited the working people in this country. We've always... You look at the billions and billions of pounds that are wasted.
Yep.
I listen to it every day. I listen to the Speaker coming back from a holiday in Seychelles.
No, it was the British Virgin Islands, and it wasn't a holiday, it was a work trip, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, this is it's beyond belief. And the way they talk about poverty today, it's not the poverty that my father grew up in.
No, exactly. And again, it's relative poverty. So, I mean, we could give everyone £1 million, but anybody who's got less than 60% of £1 million, someone on £550,000 a year, they would count as being in relative poverty. It's a load of nonsense. Peter, thank you for that. Appreciate that. Laura Jane is on the line from Hampshire. Laura Jane, you want to talk about this report on maternity care, don't you?
Yes, I'll start on the trivial because I did have cream carpets, and I was on the NHS for an unbelievably excellent home birth for 3. I was admittedly 5 minutes walk from Chelsea and Westminster, but I was terrified of giving birth over 30 years ago in the system. Many of my friends had terrifically ghastly stories even then, and I was determined that I would follow nature, and nature, I was lucky. I could give birth very quickly. I don't want to give any details, but I could have literally, I did drop them in a field, and I was incredibly lucky, and I appreciate
74 that. Hours. 74 hours I had.
No, I know. I was a good deal shorter, and the last one was 2 hours. So I was lucky, and I appreciate that. But the stories that I hear nowadays mean that I would sell goodness knows what to make sure that my daughter, if she decides and if she's lucky that she has children, to go privately, because I cannot believe, and I also am terrified of the stories of caesareans. There are many of her generation who elect for caesareans.
I know, I don't understand. I don't even think you should be allowed to do that.
Well, I think it's more to do with that they go back to work very quickly.
No, you don't. I mean, they all think they're going to keep their bits in order, and it's going to be. That's what they think, and then they end up with this massive big scar, a major operation, lots of repercussions for that, and they're off, and then you don't go back. We shouldn't be going back to work quickly anyway. You should be with your baby.
There's a bigger picture to this, and it really is a terrifying NHS, and it's got nothing to do with money, in my view. I think it's got to do with the way it's organised, the way the left hand doesn't talk to the right hand. I had a friend where I live whose partner died of cancer within a few months, and when he had passed, there were so many different people who had dealt with this, and when he passed, they rang to find out when he was coming in for his next appointment.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. Laura Jane, thank you for your call. 11:36 is the time. We're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to be talking about what on earth is going on with that Chagos deal. Is it going ahead or not? We'll talk to Dr. Alan Mendoza up next. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning. Welcome back to the show. 11:37 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Let's talk about the Chagos Islands with Dr. Alan Mendoza now. He's Executive Director of the Henry Jackson Society. He's also Reform UK's Chief Advisor on Global Affairs. Morning to you, Alan.
Hello, Julia.
Thanks for joining us. I find it always really quite strange whenever I do this. So let's talk about the Chagos Islands. Why on earth are we talking about the Chagos Islands? Why has this ever become a story? Why is it that we've got a military base on a set of islands we've had for many decades? And why has that become such a massive big story? And apparently one of the top priorities in this Keir Starmer government, given all the problems we've got at home and all the other problems we've got around the world, and yet the Chagos Islands seems to be a front page story every other day. Alan, what is the latest? Are we going to do a deal to hand over this territory that we own for no good reason whatsoever to Mauritius, and then pay to 35 billion quid over 100 years to lease the Diego Garcia military base back, or are we going to keep it?
Well, I think, firstly, the reason it's been a news story is because it's a terrible deal, as you've just pointed out. So if you start from the premise, this is a wretched deal for Britain, and then throw in a bit that it was only undertaken by this government because of its obsessive focus, when it wants to, I stress, on international law, because, of course, it emanates from an advisory, note the word advisory, ruling of the International Court of Justice. And then, of course, there's been a toing and froing as the Americans who share, well, of course, we allow them to have the base on the island, Diego Garcia, and they have ummed and ahed about whether they're in favour of it or against it, basically. And at certain times they've been in favour, and currently they're against the deal, as President Trump.
Yes. The latest musings suggest.
Exactly. The latest musings suggest that the Americans have woken up to the disaster of the deal from a strategic perspective for them. Because losing control essentially of the base via, to leasehold status as opposed to freehold status is not good for the Americans. So they've woken up to this and gone, hang on, we don't think you should sign this deal. So we're now in limbo land where the British government is having to choose between annoying its great ally, the US, versus trying to carry through on this ridiculous policy to appease, of all people, Mauritius.
Yes,
so
this is the thing. And Mauritius, of course, very much in working closely, hand in glove with its funder, which is now China. China, of course, being a hostile nation state to both America and to the Brits. But there's also some talk that if the deal did fall, we'd have to pay compensation to Mauritius for giving them something they've never owned, they've got no legal right to, and we never had to give them. I mean, it's a bit like someone sort of deciding not to. You've gone through all the hassle. We're going to sell your house. And then someone to say they're going to buy a house, and then at the last minute you decide you're not going to sell your house. There's an element where you've wasted people's time. But I mean, we never had to do this anyway. We've got into this ridiculous mess. This does seem to be the hill, or the archipelago of islands that Keir Starmer wishes to die on. And it's utterly perplexing because as you say, there's no legal argument for this, there's no judicial argument, there's certainly no diplomatic, there's no moral argument for this, and yet he's so desperate to do it. But a lot of people also worried about the huge cost of leasing it back, but also the implications for this strategically military military base, where is actually used for sorties to the Middle East by the Americans and by the Brits. It's actually incredibly, most of us probably wouldn't have heard of it until a year or two ago. It's actually strategically very important.
Well, of course it is. And look, the two things that strike everyone as bonkers is, number one, you own something. Let's just take it. You own something. You then decide to give it to somebody else, and then you lease it back and pay them a lot of money for something you owned. So the great mystery, of course, has been that part of the deal to start with. Even if you wanted to give it back, why on earth would you pay massive amounts? Why should the British taxpayer pay for something the British taxpayer has historically owned? So that's crazy in itself. But you're right to highlight the strategic prominence here. This is a vital base because it sits very firmly in the naval sphere where, for example, ships have to pass. If they're going to the Suez Canal or if they're going around Africa, they've got to go there. It sits between India and Africa, essentially, and you therefore have very good capabilities of observing what's going on. It's also very helpful from an Air Force perspective, should you be planning any action in the Middle East. And of course, the Americans right now are considering military action in the Middle East to bring Iran's despicable regime to heel. And therefore, of course, Diego Garcia becomes a very important strategic base, because that is where you base some of your air force power if you're going to launch attacks.
How do you think this will all end? Do you think we're going to end up doing the deal or not? Because if the Americans don't want the deal to go ahead, I don't see how it goes ahead. But we've got the Prime Minister and his big mate, Lord Hermer, and his other big mate, Philippe Sands, both human rights lawyers who've been very much involved in this over the years, made a lot of money in fees representing the Mauritius government on this. Do you think that actually they're gone too far down it? They simply won't turn back?
Well, they're trying hard not to turn back. But here's the point. They're trying to find the wiggle room. You've correctly analysed. If the Americans want to stop it, because we do have a treaty with the Americans, separate to anything we're doing with the Mauritians, which suggests the Americans can veto any change to the island status. So if the Americans want to do that, they can kill the deal. What the government's trying to do, and kept on trying to do, is put massive lobbying pressure on the Americans to try and get them to go along with the deal, even when they've said it's a bad deal. So I would expect the government now is trying behind the scenes to find the wiggle room to try and get the Americans to change their position again. But we're all hoping that President Trump has definitively decided that it's not in America's interests to sign this deal, and by doing so, he will save us from ourselves.
Yeah, who knows? We can keep our fingers crossed. Dr. Alan Mendoza, thank you very much indeed on that. Philip Ingram, listening to all of that, he's a former senior military intelligence officer, joining me throughout the whole show. Philip, I mean, how do you think this is going to end? Because this does seem to be something, I mean, find someone who loves you as much as Keir Starmer loves this Chagos deal.
There's no logic behind it. I can't work it out. And strategically, this place is vital. There are only 4 ground links to control the GPS systems that go around the world, and that includes the civilian ones and the military ones. The Chagos Islands is one of them, and where it's situated geographically is critical for everyone. And there is no logic whatsoever behind anything that the government's trying to do. No. And there's an awful lot of noise going on about how the potential dodgy deals have been put around elsewhere in the newspapers. We need actually a public inquiry into this.
Oh God, not another public inquiry. Yeah. I mean, at some point, all of our taxes are going to be spent on public inquiries.
Well, yes, but
and paying the Mauritians for something we don't need to pay them for.
Well, that'll kick paying the Mauritians off into the
just need people to stop doing dumb, expensive
Correct.
Things that are against our strategic national interests. But given that virtually everything that the last Conservative and the current Labour government do are dumb, expensive things that are against our national interest, that does not leave me with great hope. Can I ask you... I've got that annoying thing. I'm just about to read something and I'm about to sneeze at the same time. Apologies. We'll go to a break and I'll read it. I'll read it in a moment. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. I've stopped sneezing. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Thank you for your company. Before we go to our next guest, just to let you know, the assisted dying law has been approved in Jersey. It's one of the many parts of the British Isles looking into a new assisted dying law. It's the second actual part of the British Isles after the Isle of Man, where it's been fully approved to allow terminally ill adults expected to die within 6 months or 12 months for those with neurodegenerative conditions like Parkinson's or motor neurone disease have the right to choose to end their own lives. That's been approved. Still needs to wait for royal assent, which I think last for Isle of Man took about a year or something. But that is something that has been voted for. Meanwhile, lots of reports are suggesting that the government is not going to be giving the assisted dying bill that's going through the Commons at the moment extra time in the House of Lords, which will mean it will almost certainly fail. So we will not be seeing that law across the British mainland for assisted dying. Now, as someone who's massively in favour of people having the right to take their own lives in circumstances of great pain or disability or terminal illness, I actually support that bill falling, because it's a terrible piece of legislation that is a far too slippery slope and very, very dangerous. So I'm actually very, very pleased that will be the case. And of course, it also wasn't in the government manifesto. It's a private member's bill. But quick response to that from you, Philip Ingram. Is it Jersey have approved it? Very, very small part of Britain, British territory, but it looks like the one from Westminster is going to fall. Yeah,
the Jersey bill and the bill in the Isle of Man are different to the bills in that are going through Westminster. They have got much more checks and balances in place and are much better pieces of legislation. I too would support assisted dying, but not this bill that's going through.
Absolutely, they've really. I do not know why they've done what they've done. It's quite incredible, isn't it? Let's talk right now about cost of living, because fundamentally, when it comes down to everything, that's pretty much what decides how people vote. And we're constantly told that our energy bills are going to be going down, and we did see that announcement, didn't we, from Ofgem, the energy price regulator, who said that our bills were going to go down by on average household £117 from April. But the government had said that it was a £150 reduction. So which is it? Well, Paul Johnson is the former director of the Institute for Fiscal Studies and joins us now. Hello, Paul.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us. Well, Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor's under fire because she had promised that we were going to see our energy bills fall by 150 quid. Well, originally we were told they were going to fall by 300 quid over this Parliament. Not looking likely at all. But basically, the numbers the government gives don't seem to match up with the actual reality of the bills we pay. Tell us what's going on.
Well, I think we should believe Ofgem on this one because they're the ones who are setting the cap. What's going on, I think, is that Rachel Reeves gave her number on the back of some genuine reductions in the charges that the government is levying on our bills to support green policies and warm home discounts and all those kinds of things. So there's some genuine reductions there. And then she was kind of having an estimate of what the market changes will be. As it's turned out, the overall change is a bit less than she had suggested. I mean, the consequence is that, as you say, a cut of more than £100, which of course is good news. I mean, the thing that's very odd about the way that the government has done this, and this was announced in the budget, is this reduction lasts in their public finance numbers for the next 3 years, but then it's supposed to come back again at the end of the Parliament. Now, it won't, of course, because we're not going to have a big increase in our energy bills in a year before an election, but that helps to make the numbers add up. I mean, what's happening here is that we're moving some of the subsidies off energy bills onto tax bills. It's not that we're stopping these things. We're still
paying for them. It's just it's moved on to tax. So if you're on lower income and paying less tax, you are paying less. But people who are on higher incomes probably paying more because they're paying more. Which I suppose people would argue was a bit fairer. But this is the thing. We saw those sky high energy bills back in 22, 23 after the invasion of Ukraine. And I mean, I was looking at my bills. I mean, absolutely eye-watering. I can remember actually consciously going like, right, when I'm not having the heating on, I feel the cold. I'm sitting there wearing a puffer jacket and 4 fleeces under a blanket, freezing to death. The bill, and then gave in. The bills were so high. Lots of families really, really struggling. People still in debt today because of that, and they have come down a lot, but they are still way higher than they used to be, aren't they?
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about people still being in debt. As you say, there are a lot of people still in debt. And actually, one of the things the rest of us are paying on our bills is effectively to cover a lot of that indebtedness. There's a lot of complicated things going on within our bills, some of which reflect the cost of gas, some of which reflect government policy, some of which reflect other redistribution within the system. But you're right, bills still remain high, considerably higher than they were pre the Ukraine crisis, and that is a big issue, particularly with people on relatively low incomes.
Yeah, indeed. And also when we do still have the huge issue. I mean, again, the cost of living gone up, inflation still going up, and again, it's something Donald Trump reckons with, the State of the Union speech in America as well, which is that yes, the inflation rate has gone down, but the prices of things are still going up. They're just going up at a slightly lower rate than they were going up before. But people are still feeling the pressure on their pockets. They're still seeing those bills going up in every area. Their taxes going up marginally as well, for each extra pound they earn, and people are struggling. And one of the things that people see very clearly is people notice their council tax bills, don't they? And they notice their energy bills, because these are things they see, they come in every month, or council tax bill, you often get it, at the beginning of the year. But when it comes to energy bills, when Ed Miliband, we're going to destroy the country, send us all back to cave secretary, when he says, whatever we pay is going to be down to international gas prices, and the only way we're going to escape that is whether we rely on solar and wind here in the UK, and we're not dependent on petrostates and tyrants. This is a refrain he uses in every interview, despite the fact that most of our oil and gas that we get from abroad is from America and Norway and France. So it's not from petrostates and tyrants, other democratic allies of ours. But also, if the cost that we pay for gas and things like that, which is a massive impact on our energy bills, if that is totally down to just international prices, how come when the wholesale price plummets, we don't see across the world, we don't see that benefit? And how come America has got prices that are 4 times lower than us, and the most of mainland Europe has got prices about half ours as well? Why aren't they experiencing the same international market price fluctuations that we apparently experience?
Okay, well, there's a lot in that question. So, I mean, first of all, the US has access to much cheaper gas than we do, and it's not, in a sense, almost part of the international system. They're just paying a lot less for their gas.
But why? We're told by Ed Miliband, if we actually drill for more gas in the North Sea, it'll just go on the international market, so we'll pay the same price.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's crackers not taking gas out of the North Sea. I mean, it doesn't help anyone, the fact that we're importing it rather than producing our own. I mean, that is, I don't see the sense in that. In terms of our costs, I mean, it's a combination of the, as you say, the cost of gas internationally, but there's also a lot of other things that we're paying for. So we're paying for the grid, which is linking to North Sea wind generation and all those other things, and trying to get electricity down from the Hebrides or the Orkneys all the way down to the south of England is incredibly inefficient and expensive. And actually, just the way that we set our prices are different from those that you get in other countries. And you're right, so it's not just households. I think even more importantly, we have the highest cost of industrial, and I think of anywhere in the advanced nations, and that is down to the structure of our system. And of course,
but there's no structure of our system. Government government decisions,
government designs,
and huge amount of taxes as well.
Yeah, whatever you think of net zero and however important you think that may or may not be, it is clearly increasing the costs of energy in the short run, because if it wasn't, we wouldn't have to subsidise doing this. And we do subsidise it. We have a particular form of contracts with the producers of this stuff which guarantees them a particular price. And if this were cheaper, then we would do it irrespective of
absolutely, and the market would have got involved. And I hate to tell you, it's not just short term it's going to be more expensive, it will be long term, other than the fact that when the lights go off, everyone will go, we're done with that now, it's not going to happen anymore. Can I just ask you one other question in terms of stats we've seen today? The stats we've been looking at, the NHS doubling of the amount of money we're spending on it, 100 billion to 200 billion over 17 years. It's a long period of time. Ageing population, far more expensive drugs and treatments that have become available in that time, allowing a bigger population, 10 million more people, etc., etc. We're told by Lord Bethell, former Conservative Health Minister, that we haven't seen any increase in health impacts. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think a better way of thinking about this, actually almost a more shocking way, is that if you look at the turn of the century, about a quarter of our public service spending went on the health service. It's now well over 40% of our public service spending. So that's just telling you how much more of the state and of the economy the health service is taking up. And if you look over the last 15 years or so, we've had pretty much flat life expectancy over that period, after 2 or 3 decades of very fast increases in life expectancy. And the NHS is definitely well down the international rankings in terms of its treatment of a whole series of things, particularly some cancers and so on. Despite the fact actually we pay a pretty average, just as much as other countries. It's not that the NHS is underfunded or that our health system is underfunded relative to what a number of other countries spend. So there's absolutely a problem there. Now, as you say, part of the reason for the increases is the change in the structure of the population and all those sorts of things. But this is not an efficient system in the way that actually, if you look at some of the European systems, which are mostly, broadly speaking, free at the point of use, but differently structured. Some of them are social insurance systems, some of them have some private top-ups. Actually, in most things, we are somewhere between the US and Europe. We're often considered to be a bit mid-Atlantic. We're more European than the Europeans when it comes to our health service. We have less in the way of the social insurance and private top-ups, and a system which it doesn't treat anyone well. It treats its staff terribly. It treats doctors and nurses terribly. And we've seen the report today on maternity services treating new parents.
And patients very badly as well. Yeah, it's almost like it's not a great system. But hey, it's our NHS and apparently we love it. Paul Johnson, former director at the Institute of Fiscal Studies, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Philip Ingham is going to be staying with me, and we're going to be joined in the studio next by the brilliant author Lionel Shriver, chat about her new book, A Better Life, but also talk about all the big political issues. She's a fantastic commentator and a very sane voice on many of the biggest issues that we talk about. Can't wait to get your thoughts on what she has to say and to take your calls on all the big stories of the day. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. This is Talk. We are the home of common sense, but you knew that already.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very, very good afternoon. Welcome back to the show. Very much appreciate you joining me. It's 2 minutes past midday. This is Talk, and we are the home of common sense. Thank you very much indeed for your company, whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube or your connected device. It's great for you to join us. Lots more to talk about. If you've missed anything from the show, go to my YouTube page, the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. Hit subscribe, and you never have to miss a thing. Just a moment's time, we're going to be chatting with the author Lionel Shriver about her brand new book, A Better Life, a satire about immigration that she says risks alienating today's progressive readers. Oh dear, we wouldn't never want to do that. Also coming up in this hour, we're going to be talking about Labour's claiming, this is Peter Kyle, Government Minister, that EU realignment is where the magic happens. Good luck with that, Peter. And of course, we'll get back to why NHS maternity care is failing both mothers and babies. All that coming up. Large to say, Philip Ingram is still joining me. He is a former senior military intelligence officer. Once again, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
We've
covered morning before.
Good morning. I have to remember. I sometimes remember to say the right word. We've been asking people to get in touch about all the stories we're talking about, whether it's these immigration stats we've seen, or whether it's the NHS spending doubling in 17 years, but according to a former health minister, no actual impact on the nation's health. We're not living any longer than we used to. That's usually the biggest sign that things are getting better. And a new report claiming that maternity care is a postcode lottery. What is your reaction to that? Anything else you want to talk about? Lots of you getting in touch on lots of other topics as well. Give us a call on 0344 499 1000, or you can get in touch with us on on text by messaging Talk and your message to 87222. You can message us on X at talkTV. Calls are charged the national rate, and text costs one standard network rate message. Right now, let's welcome our fellow member of the studio today. I'm delighted to say the author Lionel Shriver has joined us, as I say, to talk about her brand new novel, A Better Life. A very good afternoon to you.
Always a pleasure to talk to you.
It is so lovely to have you here. Now, I mean, look, readers who know who you are, it was from your 2003 novel, and I feel bad harping on this, but someone who's written so many novels since and written so much just wonderful prose, not novels, but real life about what's happening in the real world. But we need to talk about Kevin, made into a hit Hollywood movie. And you have followed on with many novels since, and this latest, like a lot of your novels, is actually about what is going on in the real world, the zeitgeist issues of the time. And you've written books about, wokedom, and this one is about immigration. Tell us just briefly what the theme, the storyline of the novel is, and why it may upset some readers.
It's actually based on a program that then New York City Mayor Eric Adams proposed in 2023. The city was being inundated with literally hundreds of thousands of migrants pouring up from the southern border that Joe Biden, as we know, just left completely open. It's like leaving your back door unlocked. And Adams suggested that we pay New Yorkers to put up migrants in their own spare bedrooms. Now, that program never came to fruition. I never learned why, but it did become manifest in my novel. Mm-hmm. So it's about a mother living with her grown son in a posh neighborhood of Brooklyn. She's a typical progressive. She wants to show her son what it means to put your house where your mouth is. Yeah. And therefore takes in, to begin with, a single Honduran migrant. And to be safe, she requests a female. And it takes off from there. Ultimately, I hope this isn't too much of a spoiler, it becomes a home invasion story.
I think we're all surprised by that. But it's interesting that her son, who doesn't work, a grown-up son, is rather, it's outrageous that someone is here, yet because he's not actually working, making a contribution himself. But I mean, look, this didn't actually happen in real life in New York, but we did see, of course, the case of after the invasion of Ukraine by Russia 4 years ago, many Britons opening their doors, and in fact we saw it across Europe actually, opening their doors to Ukrainian, largely mums and children, to give them a home when they needed one, when the Russian forces invaded. Rather different circumstances, though.
Very different circumstances.
And very different motivations there. There's no doubt at all. I mean, immigration is just a huge issue in every country in the Western world right now, not
Yes,
just
it
in
is.
Britain, in America. It's been a decisive issue in elections here and in presidential elections in America, and clearly across mainland Europe as well. And you live now in Portugal.
Yes, where
don't
it's
you?
also
Where
a big
it's
issue.
also a big issue, not surprisingly, given if you look at its geographical location. It is fascinating how the general publics of these countries, whether on the left or the right, because a lot of people on the left, they talk a good game on this stuff, but when it actually comes down to the reality, you know, most of them, funny enough, don't open their doors. They aren't as welcome as they pretend they think they are. But why do you think there's such a disconnect from voters and what? I mean, in this country, no government has been elected saying they're going to increase immigration.
Oh, I think that is one of the big mysteries.
Yeah, but what's the disconnect between the politicians and the public? Why? Why don't they get it?
Honestly, I'm baffled. You know, it would seem to be to the electoral advantage of both parties, any parties in this country, to say enough is enough. We are not putting people who just rock up on our shores up in four-star hotels. And we're either going to deport them to some little island they're not going to like, or are we going to
Chagos is available, apparently nice this time of year.
Yes, excellent idea. And I really don't understand. Part of it is ineffectuality and fecklessness, but part of it is a kind of learned helplessness on this topic in particular. We know the public is educated on this point already. All these treaties that are tying the hands of legislatures and allowing activist judges to let people stay for the most absurd reasons. So it's not a mystery how to get out of it. Yep. But nobody makes a move. We're not getting out of the ECHR. We're not getting out of the 1951 Refugee Convention. And we're not eliminating the Equality Act and canceling the Human Rights Act. I mean, all of those things have to go. Even then, dealing with the people who are already inside the country is going to be very difficult.
I love the irony that you're saying you're an American citizen and you live in mainland Europe. But it is interesting, isn't it?
Well, I lived in the UK for 36 years, so I still think we.
People will say, well, hold on a minute, and I do hear this. I always find it fascinating. You know, but you're a migrant, so why is it different for you? Why is it different for you?
Well, overwhelmingly because I am a legal migrant and have gone to a lot of trouble, both to immigrate to the UK and laterally to immigrate to Portugal. And believe me, unless you have a tolerance for bureaucracy, you really don't want to immigrate to Portugal. And therefore, I mean, I'm like a lot of other immigrants who have come in legally, gone to all that trouble, often a lot of expense, and who resent people who use that backdoor route.
Yeah. And there are a lot of hurdles to jump over in terms of income, and English language wouldn't be an issue for you from America, but there are lots of other hurdles. This is the thing. Do you think that a lot of the people who, and again, I'm thinking of previous novels you've written about, everyone sort of, pretending that people sort of get into this woke mind think. Do they actually believe? So when the people say, let's say Zach Polanski, the Green Party leader, very much in the news lately, and others, and a lot of people on the left, your party in the left, when they say, there should be no borders, no one is illegal, and we've discovered
which isn't true.
Yeah, but
they can say it over and over again. It doesn't make it true.
Do they believe that it is true, or do they believe that it should be true? And is that a genuine thing?
They don't know the difference.
Yeah.
Between should and is.
That's the issue. But is that about them? Is the urge that they want to is it a virtue signal on social media? They want people to think they're a nice person? Is that they genuinely think, well, why should I, as a lucky person in the Western world, with all of this, why should I benefit and not someone who's brought up in a mud hut in Mogadishu? I mean, do you think that they genuinely think this is about fairness?
Ideologically, I do not think the left believes in self-interest, national self-interest most of all. And if you don't believe in the prosecution of national self-interest, then you do not believe in the nation state. And fundamentally, they do not believe in the nation state. They have embraced this kind of woolly humanism so that everyone has the same rights, and they really believe in freedom of movement for the whole world, which is completely unmanageable and means that if you really do pursue those policies, that in short order, there will be no difference between the West and the rest of the world.
I mean, that would probably...
That's one way to solve the immigration crisis.
That would solve the immigration problem, but I've always thought their main aim was to, they would just impoverish us to a certain extent that people wouldn't want to come here. And that was the problem. Because this is the thing, the movement of people is only in one direction. We do not have a large number of people from the Western world desperate to go and move to failing countries in Africa or to Pakistan or Afghanistan.
If we did, the left would call it settler colonialism, right?
Yeah, very, very good point. How do we solve this problem? Because we have a huge number of politicians, again, across Europe, across America, across Britain, who subscribe to this point of view, and a huge number of voters who certainly claim to subscribe to this view. How do we deal with that? Because people have been, I mean, there's definitely a clear movement. We've seen the support for reform rise and people being angry with the Conservatives and angry with Labour now, not dealing with certainly illegal immigration. We've got some new stats today. It relates about the number of small boat crossings and the like. But
550.
No, 545. You don't need to exaggerate. Sorry. How dare you?
I've rounded up.
How dare you? But I mean, that's just in one day. And again, it's the weather that's in charge of how many people come to this country, not any government policy. But how do we change people's views? Because if looking at the facts, if simply watching the news every day doesn't convince you we've got a problem, what will convince you that it's a problem?
If you look at the polling, there's no more convincing that needs to be done. The majority of this country wants immigration drastically slowed, if not stopped. And I think that it would do this country a world of good to do what the U.S. did in the last century between 1924 and 1965, when immigration was basically shut down. And it allowed for the country to become one nation again as a population and as a culture. And it takes a long time to assimilate people, especially when they come in large numbers in a small period of time.
Yeah. And America has always been much better at assimilating people. Again, this thing, you're an Italian American, you're an Arab American. But it's this idea that you're still American, whereas we've gone down this route of this. I mean, again, I've always been opposed to this multiculturalism. I heard my colleague Kev O'Sullivan the other day, but he said, got no problem with multiculturalism. I've got no problem with multiracialism. I couldn't care less what colour someone's skin is. I absolutely have a problem with multiculturalism. Western liberal culture is by far superior to any other culture that's ever existed on the planet. We should celebrate that, and we should demand that you ascribe to that culture, or you're not coming in. It seems to me to be the number one criterion. But I mean, America seems to have managed that better than we have.
Not as well as you think.
Well, I think only in like the last sort of 5-10 years has it gone, massively downhill. Well, in terms of just, as you say, opening the borders, literally saying anyone can turn up, whoever wants to turn up.
Well, Biden let in, nobody knows.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody knows. It's at least 10 million people.
Yeah. Well, we used to think that Donald Trump was exaggerating that,
in
and he
4
wasn't.
years.
Yeah.
And it may be as high as 20, because you don't know about the unknown unknowns, if you will. And the U.S. likes to think of itself as an exception to everything, actually, but on this point as well. Oh, we can absorb infinite numbers of people in a weeny amount of time, and it's not true. It's because they come in, and inevitably, if you've got lots of people from the same area of the world, they accumulate in the same place.
In the same way that Brits and Americans do.
It's a human instinct, right? People don't assimilate, for the most part, because they are desperate to be a part of a new country. They do so because they have to. You can't manage without English, for example. But in the communities I'm talking about, you can manage very well without English. You can find a lawyer, you can find a dentist, a supermarket that stocks all the food from back home. So the U.S. is becoming more atomized than it used to be. And one of the things that really struck me in a book I read that's only out last month, that said there's a dominant attitude in Mexico that the increasing Hispanic population of the southwestern states in the U.S., that they're becoming more and more Hispanic, is just taking back territory that used to belong to Mexico. And this is a widespread view, even in government, that this is a form of a deliberate recolonization, and they increasingly regard those states as part of Mexico.
Just quite extraordinary. I wonder what we're going to hand over and to whom.
Unfortunately, they don't also volunteer to take the health care and welfare bill.
No, funny that. Who knew? Let's also talk about another issue that you've been very open on, and I'm very grateful to you for, is the trans woke madness there. Every now and then we see some... There's these sort of chinks of light that look like it's hopeful here. And we've got an awful lot of people who apparently know far better than me say woke is dead. I don't think it is.
I'm not convinced.
I'm not convinced at all. We had that Supreme Court ruling last April, which a load of people on your side of the debate were saying, right, that's it. Basically, we got a load of judges writing an incredibly clear, simple, just a few pages in a court judgment saying it's very, very clear that when you define sex, gender or sex, what you mean is biological sex, and that's a man or a woman, what you are physically, not what you think you are on a Wednesday afternoon. It's very, very clear, and it was like, right, well, that's it, that's done. We discovered this week, half of councils in England are not obeying that rule when it comes to providing services for staff and indeed leisure facilities, school toilets and the like, single-sex spaces, which girls are legally entitled to. We see, the civil service here, the NHS, I say all councils, schools utterly captured by this ideology. It ain't going anywhere. It's got a vice-like grip on the throats of the public sector here. How do we deal with that when clearly the public has woken up and gone, yeah, this isn't about being kind, this is about madness and putting young women and girls at risk to their own safety or unfairness in sport, whatever it is. How do we push that forward to get back to what everyone knew 10 years ago, which was that men and women were different and couldn't change sex?
Well, somehow you've got to get control of the education system again, which has been infiltrated with this ideology. And so we're telling 5-year-olds that they can choose which sex they want to be, which is a lie. And it's something that children are naturally going to believe. Why shouldn't they believe?
They think they're Superman or Spider-Man.
That's right. I remember one of my earliest memories is my mother playfully asking what I thought I wanted to be when I was growing up, and I couldn't have been older than 4. And I said I wanted to be a bear.
Why not?
I was sincere. I thought that sounded like
just
a great
as
idea.
easy as you being a man.
Yes. And if I'd been told in kindergarten that I could be a boy if I wanted to, I might have opted for it.
Yeah.
But it is child abuse.
Yeah.
And but this woke thing, which includes the trans thing, trans is very, very important to that larger ideology.
tiny percentage of people who mistakenly believe they're born in the wrong body apparently are the people we should most be concerned about in the world.
But the whole progressive movement cares desperately about this issue. And I actually I pictured the intro to The Last of Us. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Which is a fungus that takes over the world.
Yeah.
And so it's like,
it is.
And that's where it is. It's gone into our institutions.
So
like
how do we get it out? Because for me, I'm thinking like,
what are we doing now?
Yeah, we're talking about it.
We're doing what we can. I wrote a book. I'm thinking of taking on the trans thing with the next one. With the immigration issue, all I know to do is write columns and write books. So my recent novel, A Better Life, is for once trying to put forward the case for the host population whose hospitality has been requisitioned against their will.
Yeah.
And very few literary novelists ever look at that perspective.
Well, a lot of publishers wouldn't publish it.
Well, more fair play to HarperCollins for publishing this book.
Yeah.
None of the other big 5 publishers would ever consider publishing this book.
I mean, we've seen, look, we've had publishers who drop novelists because they support J.K. Rowling, who has never said anything remotely controversial if you actually look at her words. And even if she had, I don't care. You could still cope with reading her book or being in a company that publishes her book.
Well, maybe one of the answers then is to buy my book and other books like it. It's like voting.
Yes,
it
is.
If you make this kind of book and these perspectives make money, which is why J.K. Rowling is so impervious, then they can't get rid of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, it's like Douglas Murray, and he's apparently beyond the pale to a lot of these people. And he says stuff, best-selling books, and I know you know him well as well. And it's just, and this is the thing. And your books are always very, very good sellers. Because they're always so original. Just one final thing I want to ask you about, because it's the main story in the news for the last God knows how many weeks now, years. Jeffrey Epstein. And the tentacles of that. We've got Hillary Clinton giving evidence later today, in front of a congressional committee, Bill Clinton tomorrow. We've got arrests in the last week of both our former US ambassador and former business secretary, Peter Mandelson. We've had the brother of the king, Andrew, arrested, his home searched, lost his titles and all of that. I mean, there's a massive big web of powerful, rich men and indeed women. Let's not ignore Ghislaine Maxwell involved in this spider's web that Jeffrey Epstein created. Where do you think this leads? Is there some big corrupt establishment of these men? Is there a cover-up? What do you think's going on?
Well, I may not make myself popular with this perspective, but I don't like this phenomenon. It strikes me as a moral panic. I don't believe in guilt by association. I also believe in innocent until proven guilty. The likes of former Prince Andrew and Mandelson have not been convicted of anything in court, and I will hold my judgment until they are given due process. And even Jeffrey Epstein was, I mean, we casually refer to him as a convicted pedophile, but the only thing that he was actually convicted of was having consensual sex with a 17-year-old girl.
I believe she was 16. Again,
she was 17, and she
two different court reports
turned 18 the next day.
He solicited her for prostitution, but
fair enough. But
I don't. Yeah, sorry. But we also know that was pleaded down from numerous young women, some as young as 14.
Right. There are lots of people who have done more egregious things.
You think there's a bit of a moral panic, a bit of hysteria?
I do. I think it's hysterical, and I'm starting to feel sorry for the people who are caught up in it.
Very, very interesting. Very interesting perspective. This is my thing I love about you. You don't care whether people agree with you, what you say.
I wasn't going to tell you what I'm supposed to say.
No, never.
Because it's not my nature.
Absolutely. Lionel Shriver, author of A Better Life, out now from HarperCollins. Absolutely a brilliant read. Always original. Thank you so much for joining us. 12:24 is the time. We're going to come back to you, come back to Philip Ingram in just a couple of moments. This is Talk. Breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is.
Mr. Mandarin, how long do you think that you can stay on the island?
We're going to stay forever. Our rights have to be respected now. We're going to stay.
Do you expect Jeremy Clarkson to become a part of your new party?
I can tell you, if Jeremy Clarkson decided to darken my doorstep, I would be absolutely delighted.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Philip Ingram, actually, she was in the studio listening to Lionel Shriver. She's always just such a fascinating interview. All of her books are brilliant, and she's such a. I always read her, her political analysis and she's frankly, she doesn't give two stuffs whether someone agrees with her or likes what she says. She says what she thinks. We need more of that in the world, do we not?
We need lots more of that. What a fascinating lady with very interesting insights, which clearly she's got because of the amount of research she has to do for the columns that she's writing and the books that she's writing.
Again, it's interesting, how many publishers just don't want to publish stuff they think is going to upset people. What? When I grew up, books were supposed to upset you and make you think.
Well, exactly. Books are all about making you think, whether it be a novel, whether it be a factual book, whether it be a column or anything else. It's about giving a slightly different perspective on something.
But giving honesty.
Yes.
Honesty. Number one every single time. Well, that's what we need in all the big topics we talk about. Let's get to your phone calls. Lots of you getting in touch, and particularly on that maternity report from Baroness Amos, looking into, the postcode lottery of care we're seeing, which is literally leaving babies and mothers dying as a result of failures in maternity units. 0344 499 1000 is the number to get in touch. Kira's done just that. She is in Derbyshire. Hello, Kira.
Hi, Julia.
Hello.
I lost my baby in 2010,
Oh, my darling.
and I had a condition that was called PPROM, and I had complications, and I ended up with sepsis. When I got my maternity notes, it had PPROM. I never heard of PPROM.
No.
Don't know if you have.
No.
It's preterm, pre-labour rupture of membranes, which is when your waters go before 37 weeks of pregnancy.
Right, yeah.
I went to the first maternity inquiry shortly after I lost my baby. I think it was about 2011, 2012. Don't quote me on the dates because it's been a long journey. So we went to that. The chair of Sam's charity at the time took my email, wrote back to me, didn't do anything about PPROM. I raised a lot of money for the other charities, raised a lot of money. I ran the London Marathon, raised a lot of money for research, but they didn't want to research PPROM.
So basically to prevent other mums losing their babies to the same issue?
Well, there is women who lose the babies to this condition, but also there's babies that do survive it.
Yeah.
And that's why I set up Little Heartbeats, because I wanted to show if women were cared for, they understood the condition, they could continue the pregnancy, but it had to be safe because women have lost their lives. We invested in research. I'm now a co-author on 3 research publications, one with the BMJ Medicine, and we reported on the impact of PROM. I have PTSD and depression because of what I do.
Let's say there is nothing worse that can happen to anybody than to lose their baby.
It is, and when you have to, fight this, I actually sued the NHS, and they came out of agreement saying they would learn from my case. They didn't.
Yeah.
So then I now look after these women all over the UK. In America, I look after them all over the world,
giving them advice and helping them. And
I spoke in the House of Lords preterm birth meeting in 2024, and the House of Lords report. This is the preterm birth inquiry, and I spoke. You can listen to my evidence; it's online still, and they didn't put it in the final report. And it's like, you are ignoring the conditions that are impacting women.
Yeah.
That does not, this condition doesn't discriminate. We have women from all cultures.
But they need to take it may not be the biggest cause of this problem, but it's a fact. Shouldn't they just have almost a tick box that we need to rule this out or look at that? Is your argument really that I mean, after your horrible loss, you're trying to make sure that this doesn't happen to other people, other families, and that they're just not listening.
They're just not listening. They're not. If you can't even write me in the report, they got my name and little heartbeats. Doesn't tell you about PROB. It doesn't explain that the college actually archived the guidelines back in 2017. It was me who campaigned, get it reinstated. The college then put a press release out that said you can now carry on your pregnancy to 37 weeks. And it's like, no, women can't all go to 37
You can't,
weeks.
exactly. Then, and again, we always hear this, don't we? Learn the lessons, and they don't. Kira, my heart goes out to you. I'm sure everyone listening and watching, our hearts go out to you. But all credit to you for actually trying to change things and make things better for other families after your awful, awful loss. Kira, my heart goes out to you. Thank you so much for sharing that and all your amazing work on that. Jordan is also on the line in Sussex, and you also want to talk about maternity failings.
Yeah, hi, Julia. Thanks for taking my call. Yeah.
Thank you for calling.
I think it's an absolute disgrace for NHS is an absolute disgrace for any woman that has to give birth in one of the hospitals. My wife gave birth back in 2021, and she during COVID, but it was the end of COVID, so it wasn't the main restriction time. She then was dilated 2 millimeters, and then was told to go back home again. An hour later, went back, was 6 millimeters, was obviously then kept in hospital. I was with her. She had a really horrid labour experience, suffered a third-degree tear, and was then literally shoved a episiotomy consent form in her face.
So here you go. Yeah. So you just felt it was just really uncaring maternity care.
Yeah, absolutely dreadful. And then so she was shoved in her face. She signed it obviously because she wanted a tear supposedly had to be repaired in theatre. They botched the stitching up. And then during postnatal, post-baby, she was more or less, I could only go in once every 6-7 hours because of COVID, so it was obviously I couldn't stay with her.
Nonsense, yeah.
Exactly, yeah, absolutely no nonsense. And I got in there, the first time I went in there after I was told to go home because of COVID, I got in there, and then a nurse, a senior matron comes up to my wife and says, I see you've wet your knickers. Has your catheter not been changed? And says, I've been asked for the catheter to be changed 2 or 3 times. You told me, you'd come and change it. You haven't.
And for hours and hours. So we're talking about really, I mean, a lot of gruesome detail there, but basically, just basic stuff. This is not highfalutin. Has someone been trained to be talking about the basic care that a woman should have when she goes into labour, and it just wasn't there. Did you take action afterwards at all? Did you complain or anything?
We complained, yeah, but it was kind of always put under the carpet. It wasn't really action at all.
You should be grateful. You all came out alive. You should be grateful. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, compared to previous call, obviously there are worse situations. But, she wants to have another baby. And I'm thinking, she's 39 now. But I'm thinking, do you want to go through that again? That horrible experience?
The terrible thing is we don't remember it all rather usefully, and it always is worth it. Jordan, thank you for that. I really appreciate you getting in touch on that as well. We're going to take a quick break right now. Up next, we are going to be talking about another attempt at, guess what? Brexit betrayal by this government. When are they going to stop? Oh, never. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense, for me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Just some breaking news for you that it's just been revealed that according to reports circulating in Bangladesh, a court in Dhaka there has today ordered an Interpol red notice for the arrest of Labour MP, former anti-corruption minister in this current Keir Starmer government, of Tulip Siddiq MP. She's actually my own MP in North London. She's been convicted multiple times in her absence of corruption in the acquisition of property, this after her own aunt, who had previously, of course, been the president, also the Prime Minister of Bangladesh. She was also convicted, in fact, and sentenced to death and long imprisonment. Tulip Siddiq here, of course, has always denied any allegations against her. However, an issue has been ordered for her to basically face an international arrest warrant, basically notifying police forces across the globe about internationally wanted fugitives and request that they are arrested pending extradition. Now, whoever would decide on extradition, if there was a Labour MP, a former government minister to be extradited, would be the current Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood, in the same government, of course, as the one that Tulip Siddiq served in. Philip Ingram, a former senior military intelligence officer. This is an extraordinary development. It was pretty extraordinary that the former anti-corruption minister got convicted in her absence in Bangladesh of a corruption scandal in Bangladesh. She was very close to her aunt, we know, and the aunt, we know 100%, was totally corrupt and ousted for her corruption and her horrible, brutal, fatal, in many cases, put-downs of any opposition. But an international arrest warrant out for Labour MP's arrest.
Oh, well, Labour MP and former minister, as you said, and this is significant. And the government, if it follows through with it very quickly, is going to be severely embarrassed. If it tries to delay it or push it off or play legal games to stop it, it's in a very difficult position. This is a very big issue for the government, I think.
Absolutely. Well, indeed. I'll keep you up to date on that. In fact, it might be worth asking my next guest about this. Kevin Murray is a former Labour Special Advisor and Associate Editor now of Labour Uncut. A very good afternoon to you, Kevin.
Good afternoon, Julie.
Thank you for joining us. Just your reaction to this international arrest warrant that's going to be issued for the arrest of Labour MP Tulip Siddiq, former anti-corruption minister under Keir Starmer.
I remember when this story started breaking a few months ago, and at first I thought it was a spoof. I have to say. I mean, not only ironically, of course, Tulip Siddiq was the anti-corruption minister in the government, and of course that's precisely what she's being charged with by a Bangladeshi
We all
court.
thought it might be something from the Westminster or the thick of it.
Yeah, absolutely. The unreality of the sheer unreality of it. But I mean, as time has gone on, we've got to bear in mind that Bangladesh has gone through the most appalling time under Tulip Siddiq's aunt, to whom she was very close, Sheikh Hasina. I mean, she was a brutal, bloody dictator, and a terrible person. Yeah. So to be friends at all, I mean, I dare I say every family's got one, but I mean certainly not one as bad as that. I can't imagine why.
But she's never disowned her aunt. She never. But look, she hasn't offered a defence in court herself. She didn't stand trial in Bangladesh, but nevertheless tried in her absence. She had the option to do so. What do you think the odds are that if there was, if this warrant is issued, that I mean, presumably she's quite easy to find. I'm pretty sure I could find her because she's MP of my own constituency. Maybe she'll be campaigning in local elections. Who knows? But should she? Do you think it's likely that the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood would approve that extradition order?
I think they'll try and find reasons not to, because it's massively embarrassing to the government and to Britain. But we've got to bear in mind Bangladesh is in a period of fundamental transition. It's a key member of the Commonwealth. It's a friendly country, and I find it very difficult to see circumstances in which we couldn't comply with the Bangladeshi court's request. It's a friendly country that's transitioned.
Or maybe we could make it a deal about also that we can deport any illegal arrivals as well. We could do a deal where you can have Tulip Siddiq, but you need to take back a few thousand people who've come here illegally too. That would be worthwhile, wouldn't it?
Well, there might be a silver lining in there somewhere. It's a very, very difficult issue to resolve because, as I say, you either comply with the perfectly legitimate request of a friendly country, or you try and confect reasons not to. And you know, as I look at this, I just think
mates with the
there are
Prime
big questions to answer.
She's mates with the Prime Minister. Let's face it, that's how she got a job. Anyway, let's talk to you about what we invited you on to talk about. And this is extraordinary comment from Peter Kyle, the business secretary. I mean, you don't get more, remote, not even Remain, than Peter Kyle. But he has said, unveiling the UK's latest deal with Brussels, he says that alignment with the European Union is, quote, where the magic happens. He said that the British public were no longer nostalgic for Brexit and backed the government's reset in relations with the bloc. And he suggested that the PM could be willing to offer further concessions to Brussels in a bid to secure deeper economic, energy and defence ties. Now, it's no doubt at all, we know that the Prime Minister, I mean, he spent most of his time as shadow Brexit secretary when he was in Jeremy Corbyn's shadow cabinet trying to stop Brexit from happening. Although he talked a good game in 2024 that he would never try and turn back Brexit, I've never believed a word of it. Is EU alignment where the magic happens, and is that what the public want?
Well, I mean, we've got to bear in mind that, even now, 41% of all our exports go to the European Union, and therefore it would be logical to try and have a good relationship with the European Union that helps us generate economic growth.
When did we say we didn't want a good relationship with them?
No, we don't. But I mean, we've gone through Brexit. We've gone through a tumultuous time, and I think what Keir Starmer is trying to do with his so-called reset, which was in the Labour Party manifesto, is to say, well, can we reach a relationship where we're now kind of divorced, but we're not throwing crockery at each other? Can we behave ourselves at family events? Can we work on issues in
hold
common?
on a minute.
But
it was always the EU that were doing that, not Britain. Britain didn't do any of that. Britain never did anything to suggest we want to have bad relationships. We had a punishment beating on the Irish Sea and the Irish border from the EU. They're the ones who've made life difficult for people entering the EU from the UK. We didn't do the same on the other side. They're the ones who've done all the throwing of crockery and causing a scene at Christmas lunch.
Well, I mean, the Boris years, the Liz Truss years were just a fundamental disaster. And I mean, liberal Tories would say that. Now, I mean, I think the fact is that we're 10 years on from Brexit, and we've got to recognise the European Union is changing rapidly.
We're not 10 years on from Brexit. We're 10 years on from the vote. And because
we're 10 years on from the vote. We're 10 years on from the rupture.
Because people like Keir Starmer were trying to stop it, we ended up not Brexiting until, 6 years ago?
Well, I mean, you can't blame Keir Starmer for that.
We would have... If people like him, and indeed the then Tory Chancellor, Philip... If the Remainers hadn't campaigned to try and undermine the Brexit negotiations, Theresa May, etc., we would have had a much better deal. It all been done and dusted and no issues.
I've been in favour of a referendum on EU membership from about 2010 onwards. I think I wrote something about it at that point. So I'm an anomaly in Labour land, if you like.
What did you want the outcome to be?
I'm very critical. I'm very critical of the European Union. There are positives. We don't want to knacker up our economic relationships with Europe, but certainly in terms of immigration, mass immigration, control of our borders. I mean, we needed to do something, and I do not throw rocks at Brexiteers and people who voted for Brexit on that basis. I think that's fair enough. But Europe, as I say, is changing. The kind of Merkel years. Open door mass immigration, it's always a good thing. That has changed. Merkel's successor, Friedrich Merz, is paying immigrants to go back to places. And we've got kind of policies in the kind of liberal European countries, the Swedens, the Denmarks, that frankly 20 years ago would have made a liberal's eyes water. I mean, they're so tough. Yeah. So Europe is changing, I think, and is recognising, probably too late, and perhaps Britain was ahead of the curve on some of this. But it is, when we talk about alignment, it's not just necessarily Britain fitting in with Europe. It's Europe increasingly fitting in with the British agenda.
But when it comes to defence policy, and again, we've seen, where was Germany when Ukraine was invaded? Boris Johnson was the leader on that. Energy policy, again, Germany, powerhouse economy of Europe, absolutely destroyed its economy with its green energy policies. Quite insane. Economic ties. Again, we're talking about an entire, bloc where overall we are seeing it is declining as a percentage of the world economy. We are seeing very little growth, mass unemployment, lots of political turmoil. That's not where the future lies. And yes, in terms of our percentage, of course we're going to be trading most in physical goods with our nearest neighbours because of the transport issues. But at the end of the day, when it comes to services and the value, actually exporting luxury, high-tech goods and the like, we are talking about a much bigger world out there of a lot more customers with a lot more money to spend than our European neighbours.
I mean, that's true. I mean, half of our exports to Europe are in services as well. That's important to say. But I mean, the alternative is what? More reliance on China, more reliance on dangerous.
There are plenty of other countries other than China and Europe.
There are, but I mean, it ill behoves us, I think, to kind of look a gift horse in the mouth. As I say, still 41% of all our exports, 50% of our imports
if the deal for
come
easier
from
trade.
Europe.
If the deal for easier trade, and asked and answered, the British public were told, oh, there's going to be economic turmoil, it'll be terrible, we'll all be much poorer. And they went, yeah, you know what? We don't believe that, but even if we do believe it, we'd still want to have sovereign authority and accountable democratic government here rather than having Brussels in charge of us. This is the thing. In return for those economic benefits, we're supposed to give up control of our energy policy, climate policy, our defence policy, and our trading standards and everything we do in this country. And the British public were asked that question and they said no.
I mean, but if we want to do deals with emerging economies, big economies, the Indias, the Chinas, we've got to give and take with these people too.
We don't give up things like that. We don't align our
immigration. We do.
Immigration.
We do. This is why we got the Boris wave. This is why they got the Boris wave. I mean, if we talk about Brexit,
that was his choice.
About Brexit betrayal, Julia.
Of course it is,
Brexit
but that was
betrayal,
his
part
choice.
that one at Boris Johnson's.
There was no need for him to do that, and it wasn't. And we saw a massive increase in net migration from outside the EU before we left the EU. That was entirely a political choice by Boris Johnson. He was absolutely wrong, and I'm glad he's not in power anymore. I never want him back again. It was a betrayal of his own voters. But it had nothing to do with Brexit.
Well, look, if you're trying to do deals with Modi and he's saying, well, I want X number of Indians to be able to come to Britain, then you do it not from a position of strength. Now, the European Union ain't perfect, clearly. But, we're looking a gift horse in the mouth if we don't try and rationalise a relationship with our nearest and dearest across a very short hop and skip and a jump across the English Channel.
Well, except
this is not going back into the European Union. This is not even going back into the single market.
The entire
this
point.
Is just trying to have a rational relationship with Europe.
They said the quiet bit out loud. The entire point is that we're going to realign so much that at some point you go, we may as well be back in the EU. That is exactly what they're aiming to do.
To de-align ourselves with Europe. I mean, the one thing our European nearest and dearest are very good at is their grub. Why would we not want to have a sanitary and phytosanitary treaty about animal goods and plant goods?
I hate to tell you, animal welfare is actually much higher in Britain than it is in the EU. So that's a load of nonsense as well. Kevin, I'm going to have to leave it there just because time's against us. So appreciate you joining us, former Labour Special Advisor, Associate Editor of Labour Uncut. Philip Ingram listening to that. I've just got no doubt at all that we know what Keir Starmer's trying to do, and all of his ministers who are full-on Ramonas. They fought against the democratic vote for Brexit. They're trying to take us back in by the back door, and then they're going to go, oh, look, we may as well be in.
Yeah, well, there's one comment that Kevin brought out that I think we should build on even more, and he said that Europe needs to be starting to fit in more with British policy. And rather than us kowtow to Europe, there has to be that balance.
It's just, I'm sorry, it's a failing bloc. I'm really not sure. I mean, we can work together on defence and where things work in our interests, yes. Yeah. Otherwise, no. 12. No, as one woman famously said. 12:50 is the time. We're going to talk more about the NHS funding. We're also going to be talking about those maternity failings as well with former NHS Trust Chairman Roy Lilly. This is Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. Welcome back. It's just the last few moments of the show before Ian Collins comes in to tell us what's happening on his show. Let's discuss more on that. Well, a couple of big NHS stories today with Roy Lilly, former NHS Trust Chairman. Very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Julie.
Thanks for joining us. Two interesting stories today. One is former Conservative Minister Lord Bethell, who has said that Britain is facing a social, moral and economic disaster because we're spending billions of pounds on the NHS, but an awful lot of it is being wasted. He says NHS spending has doubled in 17 years from basically 100 billion to 200 billion, and it's had no impact on the nation's health. People are not living longer, they're not healthier. And again, we've got this report today from Baroness Amos. It's an interim report, but looking at basically an investigation into what is effectively a postcode lottery of care when it comes to maternity care. And we've already had some really harrowing calls from some of our listeners and viewers about what's happened to them. Ladies who've lost her own baby and just feeling that they're not being listened to. But I suppose the first question is where is all that money going?
Well, look, it goes into running a service. Look,
that's a glib answer. I mean,
I agree. I agree with what he's saying. We've put a huge amount of money into the NHS. We're not any healthier. Well, that's because the NHS doesn't really do healthier. The NHS runs behind the Lord Mayor's show of life with the dust cart, sweeping up all the detritus and the...
It's our choices. They deal with us when we're unhealthy. We're the ones who make ourselves unhealthy.
It's about wellness and all the other things that public health was taken out of the purview of the NHS, shoved up the back passage of the town hall, who didn't really want it. Its budgets haven't been ring-fenced, and we don't have a proper public health strategy. Yeah. And that's the problem. And you know, I'd be happy to see money taken from the NHS and put into that. I mean, immunisations, why are they down? Well, because we've got, we used to have 11,500 health visitors. If you can imagine, that was a lot. Now we've got under 5,000.
Well, I'll tell you why our immunisations are down, and this has been an issue in Enfield. Is that it is very, very, very clearly, statistically, absolutely clear that different racial groups and different cultural heritage groups have different rates of immunisation, lack of trust in healthcare, and among Black Caribbean, Black African and Asian families, not Chinese families, they have the highest, higher than white families. You've got very low take-up of immunisation. And that is why we see outbreaks of measles and the like. But no one wants to talk about that because that would be, that would be wrong. Even though the reality is you need to tackle that issue.
If you look at the map, you can see where those concentrations are. You can see where the community work has to be done. The NHS just can't do it. So unless we have a sort of serious health prevention programme across all kinds of things, the NHS is just going to carry on costing more money. The obvious thing to do is to stop people getting sick in the first place. So I agree with him.
But then people want to, people want to eat themselves into oblivion. You can go, well, that's kind of their choice. I mean, a lot of it's down to people being obese, people not exercising, people not eating a healthy diet.
We know all the causes. And it's, a government or we or somebody has to take charge of that and say, we're not going to go there. I mean, there are things that governments can do. There are tax and levies you can put on inappropriate food and all the rest of it. And then they're worried about being called the nanny state. I mean, they're kind of, whichever way you go on any of this, there will be a queue of people saying, oh, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it that way. But until we fix people getting sick in the first place, we're going to spend more and more money on the health service. Yeah. That's it.
That's the end of it. And also, key point is we're getting older, and as we get older, we cost more money. The two times that people cost money is in the last years of their life and the first years of their life. Talk to me about this maternity report. Do we have a postcode lottery?
Right. This is look, Baroness Amos, without being rude to her, I don't know why we're doing this. There have been.
She's not an expert in this field, certainly.
Well, there have been 5 major reports into maternity. We've got others going on now. There have been 137 recommendations. If we don't know what to do to fix maternity by now, another report isn't going to do it. What has bubbled out of this, though, is a lot of concern about, about whether or not hospitals are wrongly classifying stillbirth babies And I think it's important we mention that, because there's a strong message here that is not being picked up elsewhere.
Basically, pretending that a baby was stillborn as opposed to dying as lack of care, and avoiding an investigation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's part of the problem there.
Okay.
I've looked this up so I make sure I get it right, because it's a sensitive issue for a lot of families. I mean, when babies are born, there's a thing called the Apgar scale, named after.
Okay, I've got to be honest with you. We haven't got time to go into this level of detail, Roy. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Then let me skip over it and say, making the decision at the time of birth is very difficult. You only have nanoseconds really to make that decision. I don't think it is a cover-up. A lot of it is mistakes. A lot of it is genuinely done. It's a very critical time in the birth. It's tricky to do. Don't go down the wrong rabbit hole with this.
Okay, that's very important, exactly. I really appreciate that, Roy Lilly. Short but sweet, former NHS Trust Chairman, thank you for that. Just to give you some breaking news, the Soham killer, Ian Huntley, has been seriously injured in prison. He, of course, murdered two schoolgirls, Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman, back in, I think, 2002. But the Soham killer, Ian Huntley, has been seriously injured in prison.